If Sadie Mercer had known 7 grown people were about to gamble their paychecks on her, she would have worn something more convincing than a wrinkled funeral dress and one borrowed boot. The other boot was hers. The sole had separated near the toe, so Bernice Cole had taken one look at it, disappeared into the packing shed, and returned with a muddy men's work boot 3 sizes too large. "Better to limp than leak," Bernice said. Now, Sadie stood before Bellwether Orchard's permanent crew, with rain working through her thin cardigan and $43 in her checking account. Hector Ruiz held his cap against his chest. "You said the payroll account is empty?" "Yes, and Reed offered us work." Sadie glanced toward the rows of apple trees fading into gray morning. "He did." "When can you pay us?" The honest answer felt like stepping off a roof. "I don't know." Nobody moved. Sadie swallowed. "I'll understand if you go." Hector put his cap back on. "I'm staying through harvest." "So am I," Rosa Ruiz said. Bernice folded her arms. "I'm not starting over because you don't own 2 decent shoes." One after another, all 7 chose to stay. Sadie stared at them, chilled and frightened by a loyalty she had done nothing to earn. 6 hours earlier, she had thought the orchard was only something her family expected her to sell. The papers were spread across June Mercer's dining table, between a plate of untouched lemon cookies and a vase of lilies already browning at the edges. Camille had sorted everything into neat stacks and labeled them with yellow sticky notes, as if their grandmother had died during a particularly complicated office meeting. Sadie's stack was the thinnest. Camille sat in June's old chair. It had always been understood that somebody would, eventually, but Sadie had not expected it to happen before the funeral flowers wilted. "You're dripping on the rug," Camille said. "It's raining, I noticed." Sadie stepped back onto the entry tile and pulled off her wet coat. Beneath it, she wore the black dress she had bought for their mother's funeral 6 years earlier. It still fit because grief, student debt, and dining hall coffee had kept her roughly the same size. Uncle Owen stood at the sideboard, pouring bourbon into June's good crystal at 3 in the afternoon. His tie was loosened, and his reading glasses hung from one hand. "Have one," he offered. "I'm driving. That car of yours still counts as driving?" Reed laughed from the window. He was Owen's son and had inherited his father's talent for making an insult sound like a shared joke. His funeral suit fit him perfectly. Sadie wondered whether he owned several, or simply had enough notice to get one altered. Camille tapped the papers. "Can we do this?" "I have an appraiser coming, Tuesday." "For what?" Sadie asked. "The furniture?" Sadie looked around the farmhouse kitchen. June's blue Dutch oven sat on the stove. Her wool cardigan hung from the same brass hook beside the pantry. A chipped ceramic rooster guarded the windowsill, ridiculous and somehow more alive than anyone in the room. "The furniture is staying here," Sadie said. Camille's mouth tightened. "Some of it. I don't need 4 dining tables." "You inherited 4 dining tables? I inherited the farmhouse and its contents." The words landed with the clean finality of a door latch. Owen cleared his throat. "Your grandmother made specific distributions." He slid a page towards Sadie. She did not pick it up immediately. During the past week, everyone had spoken around the estate in soft, practical phrases. June had planned carefully. June wanted no fighting. June had taken care of everybody. Sadie had believed this meant there was little enough that nobody expected surprises. She sat and read. The investment accounts went to Owen. Reed received June's remaining shares in Mercer Fruit Brokerage, the company he had already been running for nearly 3 years. Camille received the farmhouse, its detached garage, and the household property. Sadie's name appeared beside Bellwether Orchard. For a moment, she heard rain ticking against the kitchen windows. "All of it?" she asked. Reed shifted his weight. "Technically? What does technically mean? It means the land, the trees, the packing shed, the equipment, whatever's left in the operating accounts. Whatever's left." Owen took a long drink. Camille pushed Sadie's stack closer. "There are statements." The top statement showed an operating balance of $2,812. The next page listed an irrigation repair estimate for almost $19,000. Property taxes were due in November. Equipment leases, fuel bills, fertilizer, workers' compensation, and packing supplies followed. Sadie turned another page, then another. "Where's the harvest contract?" Reed stopped looking amused. Sadie had taken enough supply chain courses to recognize the empty space around an operation's only likely source of income. "Bellwether always sells through the brokerage." "Used to," Reed said. Owen gave him a warning look. Reed ignored it. The quality reports have been sliding for years. The varieties are all over the map. Volume is unpredictable, and half the pear block should have been pulled out a decade ago. I can't build supermarket orders around nostalgia. You dropped the orchard? I made a business decision. When? June and I discussed it in May. Sadie looked at him. Was she still doing her own laundry in May? Camille whispered. Sadie? No, I'm curious. Was this before or after she started calling all of us by Mom's name? Reed's jaw worked once. She understood Bellwether wasn't meeting spec. She understood she was dying. And I have growers depending on me too. Employees, loans. I don't get to tank a whole brokerage because Grandma liked seeing the same trees outside her window. Sadie sat back. The chair gave a familiar squeak under her left hip. June used to complain about that squeak while refusing to let anyone repair it. So, why leave the orchard to me? Nobody answered quickly enough. Camille smoothed one of her sticky notes. You always liked it here. I liked the rope swing. You talked about the orchard constantly. When I was 12. Owen put down his glass. Your grandmother helped with college. She helped when your mother got sick. I think she felt... What? He looked at the papers instead of Sadie. That you'd already been given a fair amount of support. There it was. Not a bequest then. A balance due. Sadie remembered every family dinner at which June had asked about grades in front of everyone. Every tuition check mailed in an envelope without a note. Every time Camille had said how lucky Sadie was to have help. She had been grateful. She had also spent 6 years trying not to need anything else. Reed crossed the room and leaned both hands on the chair opposite her. The land still has value, he said. His tone had softened, which somehow made it worse. Sell it. Pay off your student loans. Get a decent apartment. You could come out ahead. Who would buy an orchard you just said is failing? Growers buy land? To grow what? Probably apples. Sadie almost laughed. So the dirt is good. The trees are bad. The system is bad. And you're offering the workers jobs. He paused. That told her he had already spoken to them. How long have you known I was getting Bellwether? Sadie, don't turn this into something personal. She looked at the papers bearing her name, then at Camille in their grandmother's chair, and Owen beside the bourbon and Reed, wearing the company June had helped build. What part would you recommend I take personally? She left before any of them could answer. The rain had thickened outside. Her hatchback started on the second try and complained all the way down the hill toward the orchard. Bellwether lay a mile from the farmhouse, beyond a stand of poplars and a rusted sign with an apple painted where the second E should have been. June had always meant to replace it. Sadie had not driven through the gate in 4 years. The first thing she noticed was the weeds under the sign. The second was that 3 rows nearest the road had gaps where trees had been removed, the empty spaces raw and pale. A blue tarp covered part of the packing shed roof. One corner had torn loose and snapped in the wind like a flag. She parked beside June's old truck and sat with both hands on the steering wheel. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Camille and 1 text from Reed. Don't make any decisions angry. Sadie typed, I inherited a diseased fruit farm in a funeral dress. Angry is currently my best qualification. She deleted it without sending. A woman in a green rain jacket came out of the packing shed, carrying a clipboard inside a plastic grocery bag. Sadie recognized Rosa Ruiz only after she pushed back her hood. Rosa had once run the roadside stand during summer weekends and could make change faster than the old register. She stopped beside Sadie's car and tapped the window. Sadie lowered it. Rain blew in. You're June's granddaughter. One of them. The one with the braids. Not anymore. Rosa studied her damp hair. I can see that. Sadie almost smiled. Rosa held out the grocery bag. These need signing. What are they? Time sheets. Sadie stared at her. Payroll is tomorrow, Rosa added. The orchard office smelled of dust, mouse droppings, and the cinnamon air freshener June had hung from a filing cabinet years ago. Rosa switched on the fluorescent lights. One flickered but never fully caught. A whiteboard on the wall listed spray dates, bin counts, and 7 names. Underneath, in June's square handwriting, someone had written, Check West Main again. Rosa unlocked the desk drawer and took out a bank book. June kept one on paper, she said. Didn't trust the online number. Sadie checked both. The paper number was worse. Where did the money go? Wages, fuel, a compressor repair, Mr. Mercer's medical transport before he passed. Rosa said it without accusation. Then June's home care. There's not enough here for payroll. I know. How much is missing? After taxes? A little over 11,000. Sadie looked toward the orchard through the dirty window. 7 people were working somewhere beyond the rain, believing the owner of Bellwether had died, but the orchard itself had not. Did Reed talk to you? He talked to Hector. And you should talk to Hector. Rosa found the crew near the south block, where they were securing empty harvest bins before the wind scattered them. Hector looked older than Sadie remembered, and more solid, like a fence post that had survived several attempts to replace it. Bernice wore red gloves and regarded Sadie's dress with open suspicion. Hector listened without interrupting as Sadie explained the inheritance, the empty account, and the canceled contract. The other farmhands gathered quietly, rain ticking on hoods and caps. When Sadie finished, Hector asked, "What are you going to do?" She had no answer. Sell, probably. Run, possibly. Cry in private if she could find a private place that did not belong to Camille. "I can't promise you anything," she said. "That wasn't my question." "I know." Bernice looked down at Sadie's broken shoe. "You planning to work in those?" The sole had peeled open like a mouth. "I wasn't planning to own an orchard today. That orchard wasn't planning on you either." Bernice went to fetch the boot. By the time Sadie stood before all 7 workers outside the packing shed, the light was thinning over Bellwether. She told them about Reed's jobs. She told them she could not guarantee wages. She gave them every sensible reason to leave. Instead, Hector stayed, Rosa stayed, Bernice stayed. So did the other 4. Sadie looked from one rain-streaked face to the next. "Why?" she asked. Hector's expression did not soften. "We'll see," he said. Hector turned toward the shed. "That means, yes?" Sadie asked. "It means nobody's leaving tonight." Bernice handed Sadie her ruined shoe in exchange for the borrowed boot. "Don't get greedy." Inside, Rosa cleared a place on the scarred break room table. 7 metal chairs surrounded it, none matching. Someone had left half a powdered donut beneath a folded newspaper. Rain drummed on the roof and found its way through in 3 steady leaks, each caught by a different container, a bucket, an old stock pot, and a plastic bin labeled Premium Piers. The other 4 workers introduced themselves more formally than Sadie thought the circumstances deserved. Cal Boone maintained the tractors and sorting equipment. Janelle Price handled irrigation with Hector and could identify most trees by the shape of their leaves. Thomas Alvarez worked wherever the orchard was losing its current argument with nature. Leonard Webb, whom everyone called Lenny, was the youngest at 31 and had been hired 6 years earlier for one harvest that apparently had not ended. Lenny shook Sadie's hand. "Sorry for your loss. Thank you." "Also, I need my check." "Lenny," Rosa said. "What?" Both things can be true. Sadie sat at the head of the table because it was the only empty chair. June had probably sat there. The thought made her stand again. "Let's not make this ceremonial," she said. "Good," Bernice replied. "We hate ceremonies. You cried at the Christmas ham. It was an excellent ham." A few of them smiled. Not Hector. Rosa spread out the timesheets and showed Sadie exactly what was due. $11,468 after the deductions Rosa had already calculated. The operating account could cover less than a quarter of it. Fuel delivery was scheduled for Monday. The diesel tank held enough for perhaps 4 days if Cal avoided using the older tractor, which burned fuel like it held a personal grudge. "How much fruit is ready?" Sadie asked. "None we can pick today and sell tomorrow," Hector said. "What about the fruit already harvested?" "What fruit?" Sadie glanced through the shed window at stacks of wooden bins. "Empty," Rosa said. "Those are empty." Sadie rubbed both hands over her face. She had worn makeup to the funeral. Whatever remained was probably gathering under her eyes in gray bruises. "Okay. The money in the account belongs to you before it belongs to anything else." Cal shifted in his chair. "No fuel, no harvest. No harvest, no money," Janelle added. "And if she pays all of us $300, none of us has enough," Lenny said. "That's not me complaining, that's arithmetic." "You complain with arithmetic," Thomas told him. "I contain multitudes." Hector rested his forearms on the table. "Pay the 4 who need it most." "No," Rosa said immediately. "We've done it before, and it caused trouble before. June handled it. June made me lie about it. The room changed." Hector looked at his sister, and Rosa held his gaze. Sadie understood then that these people had not stayed because Bellwether was a warm place full of uncomplicated devotion. They had old battles here, grievances worn smooth from handling. June had stood in the middle of all of them, making private arrangements until nobody knew what anyone else had been promised. "I'm not deciding who needs money most," Sadie said. Hector looked back at her. "Then what are you deciding? That I need until morning? To create $8,500? To find out if it already exists somewhere?" Reed had inherited the brokerage, Owen the accounts, Camille the house. Sadie had inherited invoices. There might be receivables, a deposit, an insurance reimbursement, some ordinary piece of money moving slowly through the system. Rosa gathered the timesheets. "I'll show you the office files." "No." Everyone turned toward Janelle. She sat straight-backed, her wet hair twisted at her neck. "Not tonight?" "She's been here 2 hours, and she thinks those empty bins are full of fruit." Sadie opened her mouth, but Janelle continued. "She needs to see the West Main before she starts making calls. She needs to know which blocks are producing and which are lying to us." June kept telling everybody the orchard was one good harvest from catching up. It wasn't true. Hector's face tightened. "It wasn't," Janelle repeated. Sadie looked around the table. "Is there any chance this year's harvest covers what's owed?" Nobody answered. "That's not a rhetorical question." "Depends on the buyer," Rosa said. "We don't have one," Lenny reminded her. "Then no," Hector said. "Not the way things stand." Sadie's phone vibrated in her coat pocket. Camille's name appeared on the screen. She let it stop. "We meet here at 7, Hector said. "Wear clothes you can ruin. All my clothes fit that description." "Not the dress." "You're right. This is my formal ruin." Bernice gave an unwilling snort. They left in 2s and 3s. Rosa remained long enough to put the timesheets in the desk drawer and show Sadie how to lock it. Before she went, she placed a ring of keys on the table. Blue key is the office. Square 1 is the shed. Truck key has the rubber apple. What's the tiny silver one? Nobody knows. Sadie turned it between her fingers. "June kept it on there, so we kept it on there," Rosa said. "Don't build a religion around it." After Rosa left, the orchard became startlingly quiet. Rain softened against the roof. Somewhere in the rafters, a bird shifted and scratched. Sadie opened file drawers until she found the accounts receivable. Most invoices were stamped paid. The unpaid ones amounted to $419, and one was 18 months old. She found bank statements, repair bills, spray records, and a folder labeled 2019 taxes, into which June had placed a recipe for sour cream coffee cake. At 8, Sadie called Reed. He answered on the second ring. "You okay? Did the brokerage pay everything it owed Bellwether?" A pause. "Yes." "Are you sure?" "I'm looking at the ledger." "You're at work." "I came back." Of course he had. Reed dealt with death the way he dealt with weather delays, by returning to an environment where numbers behaved. "Did you know payroll was short?" she asked. "I knew June was moving money around. From where?" "Her personal accounts, the ones Owen inherited." Reed exhaled. "Sadie, I'm asking whether the money paying these workers got separated from the thing that employed them. It was her money. She could use it however she wanted, and now it's Owen's, and the orchard is yours." The clean division infuriated her more each time she heard it. "I need $11,000 by tomorrow. You need more than that. I'm starting with tomorrow. Come back to the house. We'll talk. I am talking, not like this." She looked at the desk, at the cinnamon air freshener, and the water stains spreading across the ceiling. "This is where I live now, apparently. You can't stay in that office? Why? Is it outside spec?" He went quiet. Sadie regretted it immediately. Reed had made a brutal decision, but he had spent the funeral standing beside June's casket with one hand braced against it when he thought nobody was watching. He had loved her. Maybe that was what made his practicality feel so much like betrayal. "I could advance something," he said. Her grip tightened on the phone. "In exchange for what?" "Nothing tonight. We figure out a sale arrangement next week, and I make sure the crew gets paid." "You already offered them other jobs." "Because they need jobs. They have jobs. They have loyalty. That's different." Sadie looked through the dark window. "I'll call you tomorrow. Don't use the tractors until Cal checks the orchard policy. June missed a payment last month. Good night, Reed." She ended the call and immediately hated that he had given her useful information. At the farmhouse, Camille opened the door, wearing socks and one of June's cardigans. Sadie stared at it. "What?" Camille asked. "Nothing." You're doing that thing with your face. I need blankets. Camille stepped aside. Open boxes covered the living room floor. Each was labeled keep, sell, donate, or Sadie. The question mark did not improve the gesture. You could sleep here, Camille said. In the house you're having appraised? I inherited it. I didn't become a dragon. You've been sitting in Grandma's chair all day. It has lumbar support. Sadie followed her upstairs. The house smelled of lemon oil and lilies. In the guest room, Camille pulled 2 blankets from a closet and placed them in Sadie's arms. Reed said you called. That family communication system remains terrifyingly efficient. He's trying to help. He canceled the only contract. It was going to happen whether Grandma died or not. Sadie stopped. You knew? I knew the orchard had problems. Everyone did. I didn't. You weren't here. Camille said it quietly. That made it harder to fight. Sadie looked past her into June's bedroom. The bed had been stripped. A pale rectangle marked the wall where June's wedding photograph had hung. Did she ever say why she left it to me? Camille leaned against the doorframe. Not to me. But you think it was repayment. I think Grandma loved people by keeping a ledger. She paid your tuition because she didn't know how to ask you to come home. Sadie's eyes moved to her sister's face. Camille looked away first. That doesn't mean the orchard is viable. Did she ask you to come home? No, she gave me the home. Apparently that was easier. For one suspended second, Sadie saw something under Camille's efficiency, an injury with different paperwork. Then Camille picked up a pair of green rubber boots from beside the dresser. These were hers, she said. They should fit you. They're part of the contents. Take the boots, Sadie. Back at Bellwether, Sadie carried the blankets and rubber boots into the office. A vinyl sofa sat against one wall beneath 3 seed company calendars. She removed its cushions, wiped off several dead beetles, and discovered it was too short by nearly a foot. The bathroom contained a toilet, a cracked mirror, and a utility sink with separate taps for water, hot enough to remove paint and water cold enough to preserve organs. She washed off her funeral makeup, changed into the jeans and sweatshirt she kept in her car, and tried not to consider the logistical problem of showering. Sleep did not arrive. At 11:30, she found a voicemail from the student loan company. At midnight, wind rattled the office windows. At 12:15, she moved a trash can beneath a new ceiling drip. At 1, she put on June's boots and walked outside. The rain had stopped. Clouds broke over the orchard, exposing narrow pieces of moonlight. The trees stood in disciplined rows from a distance, but among them, the order dissolved. Branches crossed. Weeds crowded trunks. Fallen apples softened in the mud, sweet and faintly rotten. She walked until she found the west main. A length of patched irrigation pipe ran along the ground, wrapped in black tape at one joint and clamped at another. Water pulsed from a crack in a fine silver thread. Beneath it, the soil had turned to soup. Sadie crouched and touched the leak. The pipe gave a warning shudder. She pulled her hand back just before the joint burst. Water struck her full in the chest and knocked her backward into the mud. For several seconds, she sat there soaked, listening to thousands of gallons rush into the wrong place. Then headlights moved between the trees. Hector's truck stopped at the end of the row. He climbed out wearing pajama pants beneath his work coat. I told Janelle that joint wouldn't hold, he called. Sadie pushed wet hair out of her face. You knew this would happen? I knew it would happen sometime. Is that how everything works here? Mostly. He shut the valve farther up the line. The torrent dwindled to a stream. Hector looked down at Sadie in the mud, June's boots sticking out before her. You still staying? He asked. Sadie got one boot under herself and stood. It's my orchard. That wasn't my question either. Sadie wiped mud from her cheek with the back of her hand. I don't know. Hector nodded as if she had finally supplied one correct answer. He walked past her to the broken joint, swept his flashlight over the black tape, and crouched. Water continued draining from the pipe, widening the brown channel between 2 rows. This patch was supposed to get us through June, he said. It's September. Yes. Was June a month or my grandmother? Both. Sadie tried to laugh, but her wet sweatshirt clung to her skin, and the night air had discovered every opening in it. Hector touched the split pipe. We leave the west side off until morning. Cal has one section left from the north repair. Will that fix it? It will move the problem. Where? Somewhere we haven't found yet. He stood and shone the flashlight on her. Mud coated June's green boots nearly to the top. You went looking alone. Janelle said I needed to see the west main. She didn't mean in the dark. I couldn't sleep. Now you can't irrigate either. Hector started toward his truck. Sadie followed because he had the light and because the orchard looked less orderly once she understood the trees could hide broken machinery. At the office, he opened the truck's passenger door and took out a faded sweatshirt. Put this on. I have dry clothes inside. You have heat inside? Sadie looked at the office. Hector handed her the sweatshirt. No, you don't. It smelled faintly of motor oil and peppermint. She put it on after he drove away, then hung her wet clothes over the utility sink and lay on the vinyl sofa in jeans and a t-shirt. Hector's sweatshirt covered her to mid-thigh. She slept for 40 minutes with one of June's boots still on. She woke to the smell of coffee and Bernice saying, "Dead or lazy?" "Checking," Rosa answered. Sadie opened her eyes. 6 faces hovered in the office doorway. Hector stood behind them, holding a new length of pipe. "She's alive," Lenny said. "That simplifies ownership." Sadie sat up too quickly. The seed company calendars rippled behind her. "What time is it?" 6:52, Rosa said. "You said 7. We work here." Bernice set a paper cup on the desk. "Coffee?" Sadie took it. "Thank you. Don't make it emotional." Outside, Cal had already uncovered the failed joint. He was a narrow man with a silver beard and the careful hands of someone who disliked creating new problems while solving old ones. Janelle stood inside the muddy channel, measuring pipe. "You shut the entire west line?" she asked Sadie. "Hector did. I showed June where to isolate this section last year. I didn't know there was a section. There's always a section." "She found it with her face," Hector said. That earned Sadie a glance from Janelle, though not quite forgiveness. Cal cut away the split pipe. The interior was furred with mineral deposits, leaving an opening barely wider than Sadie's thumb. "This was carrying water?" she asked. "Some," he said. "How much pressure are we losing across the orchard?" Janelle looked at Hector. "What?" Sadie asked. "June didn't like that question," Janelle said. "Why?" "Because it led to the price of answering it." Sadie crouched beside them. "I'm still asking." They gave her 4 different estimates. Hector believed the upper blocks received 60% of intended flow. Janelle said closer to half. Cal said the pumps were compensating so hard that the electric bill mattered more than the water. Thomas said the trees did not care which number made everyone feel better. Sadie found a flattened cardboard carton in the shed and drew the orchard from the county map pinned in the office. She divided it into blocks, then asked for acreage, variety, tree age, expected yield, irrigation condition, and harvest window. Hector watched her draw columns. "That's not going to grow fruit." "No, but it might tell me where the fruit is." They started with the west blocks. Up close, the orchard resisted categories. One row held Gallus planted 12 years earlier. The next had older golden delicious trees with wide, irregular crowns. Gaps appeared where fire blight had taken pairs. Some trunks bore painted numbers Sadie could not interpret. Others carried 3 kinds of tape. In the upper block, Janelle pulled an apple from a branch and cut it with a pocket knife. She showed Sadie the pale seeds. Not ready. Sadie tasted a slice anyway. It was hard enough to argue back. When? 10 days, maybe 12. Expected yield? Janelle named a number. Hector named a lower one. "Which do I write?" "Both," Thomas said. "One for hope, one for Tuesday." On the south slope, the rows became less regular. Small green apples hung among russeted ones. Hand-painted markers read Gravenstein, COX, Ash Mied, and names Sadie had never heard. "These go to the brokerage too?" she asked. "Not recently," Hector said. "What happens to them?" "Some went in mixed bins. Some June sold at the stand, some dropped. All of them? Not all." The answers around Bellwether kept arriving with holes in them. By 10, Sadie's cardboard map was crowded with arrows and conflicting figures. Her boots had rubbed both heels raw. She had learned that 2 tractors worked, one worked in reverse. The cooler seal leaked. The pear block needed picking before the gala block, and nobody agreed whether the south slope was an asset or an indulgence. She had also learned that they were likely to harvest 20% less fruit than June had projected. A black pickup waited beside the office when they returned. Owen stood near the hood, holding 2 white paper bags and an envelope. He wore yesterday's suit pants with a canvas jacket. In daylight, he looked less like June's successful son and more like a tired man who had not slept. "I brought breakfast," he said. Lenny looked into one bag. "Sandwiches, bacon. I always liked this family." The crew carried the food into the break room, leaving Sadie and Owen outside. He held out the envelope. Reed said you need to make payroll. Sadie did not take it. Reed talks too much. He called because he was worried. Reed doesn't worry, he forecasts. Then he forecasted you doing something stubborn. How much? 12,000. The number pulled at every exhausted part of her. She pictured Rosa printing the checks, Lenny paying his landlord, Cal buying groceries without having to choose what waited. Is it yours? She asked. It came from the account Mom left me, the same account June had used to support Bellwether. What do you want? Nothing unreasonable. Sadie closed her eyes briefly. That phrase has never introduced anything good. Let Reed arrange a valuation. If you sell, this comes out of the proceeds. If you don't, we discuss repayment. What does discuss mean? It means I'm not putting an interest rate on money I'm offering my niece. But you won't say it has nothing to do with selling. Owen lowered the envelope. Sadie, you have no buyer, no cash, and a broken irrigation system. This is not the moment to turn help into a loyalty test. You did that at the house. Grandma helped me, so the orchard became my fair share. His face changed. You think I said that to punish you? I think you said it because you believe it. I said it because I was trying to understand her. Did you? No. The answer came sharp enough to stop her. Owen looked toward the south slope. I spent 30 years trying to understand why your grandmother would pay any price to keep this place and still make everyone who loved it feel temporary. Sadie thought of Camille in June's cardigan. You took the accounts. She left me the accounts. And I got the reason she needed them. He flinched almost invisibly. Take the money, he said. Pay your people. Would you give it to me if I promise not to sell? That would be a lie, and you know it. Then it's not help. It's the first payment on getting me out. It's $12,000. Those things can both be true. Owen's gaze moved toward the break room window. The crew had stopped pretending not to watch. You're willing to make them wait because you're angry with us? No, that is what you're doing. Sadie hated him for saying it where she could not dismiss it. She took the envelope, opened it, and found a check payable to her. $12,000, already signed. I'll ask them, she said. Owen's mouth hardened. You own the orchard. They own the missing wages. She carried the check inside and put it on the table beside the bacon sandwiches. Nobody spoke until Lenny said, That is the quietest 12 grand I've ever seen. Sadie explained the condition. She did not improve Owen's wording or make her refusal sound noble. When she finished, Hector asked to see the check. He studied it, then slid it to Rosa. It pays us, Cal said. It starts a sale, Bernice replied. No, it starts a conversation. With this family, same thing. Janelle looked at Sadie. What do you want to do? Pay you. That's not all you want. I don't know what else I want yet. Lenny rubbed his palms over his work pants. I can wait until Friday for the rest. Not longer. Rosa turned to him. You don't have to do that. I'm not doing it for her. My cousin needs help at his tire shop for 2 afternoons. I can cover enough. One by one, they described what they could delay and what they could not. Cal needed most of his check. Janelle could wait on half. Thomas had savings but refused to say how much. Bernice announced that her mortgage company was already familiar with disappointment. Hector listened, then pushed the check back towards Sadie. We use what's in the operating account today, he said. Pay by hours, same percentage. The rest by Friday. From where? Sadie asked. That's your job. Owen's check remained on the table. Rosa looked at Sadie. If we do this, you post what's owed. Everyone sees every payment, no private deals. Sadie nodded. And don't thank us, Bernice said. Fix it. Sadie tore Owen's check in half. The sound was small. Owen watched through the window, his expression unreadable. Then he got into his truck and drove away without the breakfast bags. Rosa paid each worker the same percentage of wages owed and wrote the remaining amounts on the whiteboard. 11,468 became 8,917. Sadie stared at the new total. You have 4 days, Hector said. Friday is 3 days away. Then you shouldn't waste today. Rosa opened the lowest desk drawer and removed a dented metal recipe box. Inside were hundreds of index cards, some yellowed, some stained with juice. Names of bakeries, restaurants, farm stands, cider makers, and small grocers filled them in June's handwriting. What are these? People we used to sell to, before everything went through Reed. Sadie lifted the first card. Several phone numbers had been crossed out. Why did we stop? Rosa looked toward the empty bins. June stopped calling, she said. Eventually, they stopped calling back. Sadie turned the recipe box toward the light. Some cards held only a business name and a phone number. Others carried June's private judgments. Pays late but apologizes well. Do not send soft peers. Husband thinks he knows apples. Ask for Mara. One card had a coffee ring over every useful detail. How recent is this? Sadie asked. Rosa shrugged. The box or the coffee? The customers. Some go back 20 years. Some closed. One burned down. Which one? You'll know when you call. Hector picked up the cardboard orchard map. She can't sell what we haven't picked. I know, Sadie said. You thought empty bins were full yesterday. I know more today. That is not the same as knowing enough. She hated that he could say something insulting and useful in the same breath. Sadie carried the recipe box into the break room and spread the cards across the table by category. Bakeries, restaurants, cider makers, farm markets, grocers. Several businesses appeared in 2 or 3 stacks because June had changed her mind about what they were. Rosa watched from the doorway. Do you remember what they bought? Sadie asked. Most of them. Will you help me mark the cards? Are you asking me to help or telling me? Which answer gets you in the chair? Rosa sat. For the next hour, she supplied details June had never written down. Blue Heron Bakery preferred tart apples and paid on delivery. West Valley Produce wanted perfect color, but would take mixed sizes. Copperline Cider had bought drops years ago, until June sent a load with too much rot and blamed their press. A restaurant called Alder House used bellwether pears in a pork dish that Rosa still described with personal affection. Why didn't you call these people when June stopped? Sadie asked. I asked, and? She said the brokerage was simpler. Was it? For June. Rosa marked a line through a closed restaurant. Your grandfather needed help by then. She could make one call to read and move most of the fruit. She didn't have to sort little orders or remember which chef wanted what. So the orchard changed around what she could manage. Everything did. Sadie picked up the bakery card. Blue Heron. Mara, not the husband. June liked Mara. June wrote that Mara pays late. She liked her anyway. Mara answered on the 4th ring with machinery roaring behind her. Bellwether Orchard, Sadie began. Who? Bellwether, June Mercer's place. The machinery stopped, or Mara moved away from it. June died, Mara said. Yes. I sent flowers. They were beautiful. Sadie had no idea which arrangement had been Mara's. Who is this? Her granddaughter Sadie. I'm running the orchard now. Rosa's eyebrows rose. Sadie turned her chair away. We'll have Gravensteins and Cox apples, she continued. I'm calling to see what you'll need this fall. A silence opened on the line. Are you running it? Mara asked, or selling it? Running it. The word came before Sadie could examine it. Mara did not sound convinced. June stood me up twice. I'm sorry. Once with 3 days' notice. Once with none. You know how many pies I make on an apple weekend? No. Neither did June, apparently. Sadie wrote unreliable beside Mara's name, then scratched it out because the accusation was aimed at Bellwether, not the bakery. What would make you try us again? 30 pounds of Gravensteins that taste like Gravensteins. Can I bring them this afternoon, if you have them? Sadie covered the phone. Do we? Rosa considered. 1 row might. 1 row might, Sadie told Mara. That's an unusual sales pitch. We're doing unusually honest sales. Mara laughed once. 4 o'clock. The south slope was warmer than the upper blocks, and the earliest Gravensteins had ripened unevenly along its edge. Bernice found Sadie reaching toward the first apple she saw and slapped her wrist. Not that one. It's red. So is a stop sign. You don't eat those? Bernice took the apple in her palm, lifted it, and gave the smallest twist. The stem released. This one is ready. Sadie tried the next. It held fast. Leave it, Bernice said. How do we estimate harvest when the same row ripens at different times? You walk it. All of it? Bernice gestured at the orchard. Trees remained stubbornly resistant to email. They filled 2 shallow field crates. Every apple went through Rosa's hands in the packing shed. She rejected nearly a third for bruises, sunburn, insect marks, or softness Sadie could barely feel. Those aren't sellable? Not to Mara. Are they sellable to anyone? Maybe cider, maybe sauce, maybe nobody. The good apples went into a clean white box with a blank label. Bellwether's printed cartons had June's old brokerage number on the side. Sadie loaded the sample into her hatchback. When she turned the key, the engine clicked. She tried again. Click. Cal leaned through the passenger window. Battery. It started this morning. Batteries enjoy suspense. He brought the orchard truck around, a faded red Ford with a cracked bench seat and the rubber apple attached to its key. The cab smelled of dust, old coffee, and something herbal. "Is that peppermint?" Sadie asked. "Hector hates mice," Cal said. "Does peppermint work?" "No, but the mice smell festive." The truck shuddered all the way into town. Blue Heron Bakery occupied a brick storefront between a laundromat and an insurance office. Warm air carrying butter and cinnamon met Sadie at the door. Behind the counter, a broad-shouldered woman with flour on her black shirt opened the box without introducing herself. Mara cut one apple into thin slices. She tasted a piece, then another. "These are right," she said. Sadie released a breath. "How many can you use? How many can you bring me?" She had prepared for that. 40 boxes this week, 60 next week, depending on ripening. Mara stared at her. "Boxes this size?" Sadie looked down. The sample box held 30 pounds. Bellwether's standard cartons held 40. 40-pound boxes, Sadie corrected. "At what price?" Sadie named the number she and Rosa had calculated. Mara folded her arms. "That's higher than Reed charged me. Reed sold you Bellwether apples until 2 years ago. He charged less? He also delivered. We'll deliver. Then yes, it's higher." Sadie thought of the unpaid names on the whiteboard. "These are hand-sorted from a small block. You said they taste right." "They do. I can lower the price if you take mixed sizes." Mara studied her, perhaps waiting for more nervous bargaining. 30 boxes, she said. "Mixed sizes, Friday morning, paid on delivery, 40, 35, done." Mara held out her floury hand. Sadie shook it. The next 12 calls produced 2 disconnected numbers, 3 polite refusals, 1 man who insisted June still owed him 6 apple crates, and a cider maker who said he would discuss seconds when Sadie had an actual volume. West Valley Produce agreed to take 20 boxes of early pears if Sadie brought samples. Alderhouse had a new chef who had never heard of Bellwether, but liked the idea of buying locally until Sadie named a price. He said he would think about it in the tone people used when they were already thinking about something else. By evening, she had possible orders worth less than half the missing payroll, and no certainty Bellwether could fill them. Hector examined her list. "You promised too many Gravensteins. Bernice said the row is coming in. She said part of the row. We counted enough fruit. You counted fruit on trees. Mara is buying fruit in boxes." Sadie looked at Rosa. "What percentage gets rejected?" "Depends who picks." Everyone turned toward Lenny. "Why is this suddenly about me?" he asked. "Because you pick like the trees insulted your mother," Bernice said. "They spent Wednesday harvesting the ready Gravensteins." Sadie worked beside Janelle with a canvas picking bag strapped to her chest. The first time she released the bottom over a bin, the apples dropped too hard. Janelle winced. "Those aren't potatoes. They fell 6 inches. An apple remembers." By noon, Sadie's shoulders burned. By 3, the strap had rubbed her collarbone raw. They had filled only a fraction of the bins she had imagined, and Rosa's sorting line removed more fruit than Sadie's calculation allowed. The packing shed became an argument conducted through machinery. Rosa slowed the belt to protect the softest apples. Cal said the motor overheated at that speed. Hector wanted more people picking. Sadie wanted accurate counts before promising another box to anyone. At 5, she discovered she had priced the order without including new cartons. "How much?" she asked. Rosa showed her. "Can we use the old ones? Not with the brokerage number. We cover it. With what?" They found rolls of plain brown labels in a supply cabinet and wrote Bellwether Orchard by hand. The result looked less like premium produce than fruit sent by a relative, but the boxes held. Thursday morning, the truck's loading gate jammed. Cal fixed it with a hammer, in language he apologized for, only when Rosa looked at him. Sadie delivered pear samples to West Valley Produce, secured the 20-box order, then stopped at 4 restaurants without appointments. 2 chefs refused to come out. 1 accepted apples and never called. The 4th, a woman named Dev Patel, at a small restaurant called North Table, tasted a Cox apple and asked why no one grew them anymore. "They're inconsistent," Sadie said. "So are tomatoes. We survive." Dev bought 6 boxes for the weekend. It was not enough money to change the whiteboard, but it was the first sale Sadie made without June's name opening the door. On Friday, Mara rejected 5 of the 35 boxes. "Pressure bruises," she said, turning an apple under the bakery light. They weren't there when we loaded. They were. Sadie wanted to defend Rosa, the road, the truck, and every hour they had spent sorting. Instead, she opened the other boxes. Mara was right. She accepted 30 and wrote the check on the counter. Back at Bellwether, Rosa added the bakery payment, the pair order, Dev's 6 boxes, and 2 smaller sales. After cartons, fuel, and payroll deductions, they were still short. $4,380. The crew gathered around the whiteboard. Sadie had rehearsed several explanations. None survived the sight of Lenny's name, beside what she still owed him. "I said Friday," she began. "You did," Hector said. "I missed. Nobody rescued her. I can pay another percentage today. After that, there isn't enough work ready to keep everyone at full hours next week." Cal looked toward the equipment bay. Janelle crossed her arms. "So, what are you saying? That I need you here when the fruit is ready, but I can't ask you to sit around unpaid until then. If Reed's work is available, or anyone else's, take it." Hector's expression sharpened. "You want us working for him?" "No, I want you paying your bills. That makes harvest scheduling harder," Rosa said. "I know." "Do you?" Hector asked. Sadie looked at the 7 names on the board. "Staying here shouldn't require drowning with me." Lenny broke the silence. "Tire shop can use me, Monday and Tuesday. Janelle could help at a vineyard for 2 days. Cal had repair work waiting at a neighbor's farm. Thomas said he would stay at Bellwether because somebody had to make sure Sadie did not turn a pair order into a national emergency. Bernice erased the proposed schedule and began writing a new one. "We said we'd stay," she told Sadie. "We did not say we'd stand still." That evening, Sadie drove the orchard truck back through town and saw a help wanted sign taped inside the highway diner's window. She kept driving for half a block. Then she turned around. The diner was called Mile 9, despite sitting beside mile marker 11. When Sadie asked about it, the woman behind the register looked up from a crossword puzzle and said, "Road moved." Sadie glanced through the window at the highway. "Not recently," the woman added. A plastic name tag identified her as Patty. She was somewhere in her 50s, with iron gray hair pinned up using 2 yellow pencils. The dinner rush appeared to consist of 3 truck drivers, an elderly couple sharing onion rings, and a man asleep over a bowl of chili. "I saw the sign," Sadie said. "Can you carry 4 plates?" "Yes." "Can you carry 4 plates while someone asks for ranch dressing they already have?" "Probably." "Can you show up sober?" "Yes." Patty put down her pencil. "You're overdressed for an application." Sadie had changed out of June's mud-stiffened boots, but still wore the sweatshirt Hector had loaned her. Her jeans bore apple dust and a brown streak from the packing belt. "This is my other formal outfit." Patty looked her over. "You ever wait tables?" 2 years near campus. "Breakfast mostly." "Why'd you stop?" "I graduated." "And that went badly?" "Almost immediately." Patty slid an application across the counter. "6 to close, Tuesday through Saturday. Cash tips are yours. Check every other Friday. I need some flexibility during harvest." "That a medical condition?" "Apples." Patty waited. "I own Bellwether Orchard." The pencil paused above the crossword. "June's place?" It was. Patty's expression lost some of its dryness. "I heard." Sadie braced for condolences. "June hated my pie," Patty said. "What was wrong with it?" "Nothing. She just preferred being right." That sounded enough like June that Sadie smiled. Patty folded the blank application in half. "Start tomorrow. If the apples call with an emergency, you finish your table first." Sadie returned to Bellwether in darkness. Hector's sweatshirt lay on the passenger seat, washed in the diner's bathroom sink and only partly dried beneath the hand blower. The orchard office light was on. Rosa stood at the utility sink with a cleaning rag. "I thought you left," Sadie said. "I did. I came back." "Why?" Rosa pointed toward a folded towel, a bar of soap, and a plastic basin beside the sink. Sadie looked at her. "The hot tap will burn you," Rosa said. "Fill the basin half from each. Wash your hair first. The water gets rusty after a few minutes." "Thank you." "Don't tell Bernice I did this." "Why? She'll make it emotional." Rosa moved toward the door, then noticed the application in Sadie's hand. What's that? Night job. You already have a job. I have an orchard. The distinction is becoming important. You can't work until midnight and be here at 6. Hector said 7. Rosa gave her a look inherited directly from her brother. Hector says many things. Sadie woke before the alarm because someone started a tractor outside at 5:40. She dressed beneath one of June's blankets, pinned her damp hair up, and stepped out to discover only Thomas in the yard. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Working. You're scheduled at 7. I enjoyed disappointing Rosa's spreadsheets." The truth emerged when he thought Sadie was not looking. He checked the unpaid wages on the whiteboard, then added diesel to the smaller tractor from a red can in his truck. "You bought that?" she asked. "I had it. That wasn't my question." Thomas screwed the cap onto the tank. "You've been spending too much time with Hector. Put the receipt on Rosa's desk." "No, I'll reimburse you." "With what?" Sadie had no answer that did not insult both of them. Thomas climbed onto the tractor. "We're even then." "We're absolutely not." "Good. Gives us something to discuss when you have money." The reduced schedule made Bellwether feel abandoned, even while work continued. Cal and Lenny were gone, Monday and Tuesday. Janelle left after lunch to help at the vineyard. Hector moved between blocks without speaking much, favoring his right arm when he thought nobody noticed. Bernice and Tomas harvested pears, while Sadie culled buyers from the recipe box. The pears were better than the apples at first glance. Gold green, smooth, almost luminous in the field crates, but Rosa rejected every piece with a stem puncture or pressure mark. "We're throwing out money for freckles," Sadie said. "We're sorting quality." West Valley said they wanted #1 fruit. They didn't say cosmetically flawless. They don't have to. That's what #1 means. Sadie picked up a pear with a small dark mark near the neck. "This tastes exactly the same, then eat it. We need to sell it to a different customer." Every answer produced another category, another buyer they did not yet have, another route the fruit might take before becoming revenue or rot. Sadie began a new chart on the break room wall. Fresh premium, fresh mixed grade, bakery, cider, damage, waste. Bernice added a final column labeled Lenny and drew an arrow from waste. When Lenny returned and saw it, he moved his name above premium. The West Valley order paid enough to reduce the whiteboard balance again. Dev at North Table bought another 8 boxes, including 2 of the odd Cox apples. She called the next morning to ask how many Sadie could supply through October. Sadie covered the phone and found Bernice near the sorting line. "How many Cox do we have?" "More than 8 boxes. How many? Ready or existing?" Why can't any answer here be one number? Bernice set down her pruning shears. "Because a tree isn't a warehouse. Dev could use 10 boxes each week." Sadie agreed to 6 until they knew more. It was the kind of cautious decision she should have made when Mara called from Blue Heron that afternoon. "I need 50 boxes for Saturday," Mara said. "Same apple, same size mix." Sadie's eyes went to the whiteboard. 50 boxes would cover more than $1,000 in wages. Done. Rosa, standing beside her, mouthed, "Ask Bernice." Sadie turned away. "Friday delivery?" she asked. 6 in the morning, we'll be there." She hung up. Rosa stared at her. "The row isn't ready. Part of it is. Not 50 boxes. It's Monday. Apples do not ripen faster because Mara has a Saturday. We counted the fruit. We counted fruit, not ready fruit." "Hector told you that." "I'm aware of what Hector told me." "Apparently not." Sadie found Bernice in the south block. Bernice listened, then picked an apple and cut it open. The flesh was pale. The seeds had begun to darken, but were not brown. "Thursday at the earliest for this section," she said. "We deliver Friday. You deliver fewer Friday. I promised 50. "That was brave of you." Sadie heard the insult. "Can we find 50 across the slope? Maybe if we strip trees that need another week." Would Mara notice? Bernice bit into the slice and handed the rest to Sadie. The apple was tart and hard, its flavor thin beneath the acid. "She'll notice," Bernice said. Sadie looked at rows of money that refused to become money on schedule. What happens if we pick them now and hold them? They stay picked too early. There's no way to ripen them. There are ways to make them softer. That's not the same thing. Sadie called Mara back and reduced the promise to 30 boxes. "I turned away another grower," Mara said. "It's been 40 minutes. 40 minutes is enough to make a phone call." "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fill pie shells." "No, but apples picked too early won't either." Mara went silent. I can bring 30 that are right, Sadie continued. If we have more, I'll call Thursday. I won't fill the order with bad fruit just because I promised it. You already promised it. Yes, it cost her to leave the mistake uncovered. Mara sighed. 30? If they're like last week, they will be. After the call, Rosa said, that was the correct fix. Sadie waited. To the mistake you created, Rosa added. There it was. On Tuesday afternoon, Sadie revised the packing schedule. With fewer orders, she cut Rosa to 4 hours Wednesday and moved the sanitation work to Friday. She posted the schedule on the whiteboard before leaving for the diner. Rosa called during Sadie's first table. I need 6 hours tomorrow. Sadie balanced 3 plates along her left arm. We don't have enough fruit. The cooler needs cleaning. I moved it to Friday. You can't sanitize a cooler while we're loading it. We need to reduce labor somewhere. Then reduce your labor. My labor is free. That doesn't make it good. A customer at table 7 lifted an empty coffee mug. Rosa, I'm working. So am I. The line went dead. Sadie finished her shift at 11:45 with $28 in tips, mustard on her sleeve, and a blister shaped like Ohio. Patty counted the register while Sadie rolled silverware. You forgot table 3's toast, Patty said. I brought it eventually, after he finished his eggs. He still ate it. People will eat evidence. Sadie tucked the bills into her pocket. A man at the counter had stayed through 3 cups of decaf. He wore a feed store cap and read the local paper one narrow column at a time. As Sadie refilled his mug, he looked at the bellwether name written in marker on the back of her hand. You work out there? He asked. I own it. He glanced at her mustard-stained sweatshirt. Business going well? Perfectly. My wife used to buy pear butter at that stand. The roadside stand? June closed it years ago. Sadie had passed the small shuttered building near the orchard gate without considering what was inside. Would she buy it again? Sadie asked. My wife died. I'm sorry. She would have, though. He added cream to the coffee. June made terrible change. Shorted me $1 once. That also sounds like her. She gave me 6 apples to settle it. Did that settle it? Depends who was counting. At Bellwether, the office light was off, but a lamp glowed in the break room. Rosa sat alone beneath it, labeling cartons. You're not scheduled, Sadie said. Neither are you. Sadie put her tip money on the table. Rosa looked at the bills, then at her. That's yours. So are the unpaid hours on the board. No. Those belong to the orchard. The orchard belongs to me. You keep saying that like it answers things. Sadie lowered herself into the chair opposite her. I shouldn't have cut your hours without asking. No, I thought packing followed sales. Packing follows everything. The cooler, cartons, counts, cleaning, buyer complaints, whatever Lenny broke. I haven't broken anything this week, Lenny called from somewhere in the dark shed. Rosa did not even turn. Go home. A door shut. Sadie rubbed her blistered heel against the other ankle. Tell me what you need before Friday. I need you to stop treating labor like a number you remove after the plan is made. That's what it is on every budget, and that is why budgets don't pick fruit. Sadie looked at the cartons between them. Rosa had written Bellwether Orchard on each brown label, the letters straight and patient. I need a schedule we can afford, Sadie said. Then make one with us. Rosa slid a marker across the table. Together, they erased the week. Rosa marked the work that could move and the work that could not. Sadie fit deliveries around ripening windows and her diner shifts. Neither got everything she wanted. When they finished, it was after 1. Sadie picked up the marker and added, Road Stand Inventory, to the bottom corner. Rosa stared at the words. What's inside it? Sadie asked. Mice, probably, besides them. Rosa capped the marker. A business? June stopped before she stopped everything else. The tiny silver key did not open the roadside stand. Sadie tried it twice anyway, because accepting that a useless key remained, useless felt unnecessarily pessimistic. Rosa watched from beneath the stand's shallow awning. June kept the actual key in the blue coffee can. Where's the blue coffee can? In the packing shed. Why didn't we bring it? You wanted to try the mysterious key. Sadie put the silver key back on the ring. I'm learning not to build a religion around it. That would be progress. The blue coffee can held bolts, 2 dead moths, and a brass key wrapped in masking tape. The stand's padlock opened reluctantly. Rosa pulled the double doors apart, releasing an odor of dust, mouse nests, and old wood warmed by years of trapped summers. Inside, narrow shelves lined 3 walls. A produce scale sat on the counter with its metal pan turned upside down. Faded signs advertised Bartlett pears at 99 cents a pound and cider by the gallon. The cider refrigerator had no door. Sadie stepped over a collapsed carton. "We can clean this. We can clean a bus station too. Doesn't mean we should sell fruit in it. The roof looks sound. Compared to the packing shed, everything looks sound." Sadie lifted the metal pan from the scale. Beneath it lay a scattering of mouse droppings and a wooden token stamped with a red apple. Did Grandma use tokens? No. She used cash and suspicion. On the wall behind the counter, partly hidden by a stained calendar, someone had painted bellwether fruit in loose green letters. A small yellow pear leaned against the final T. Sadie touched the edge of the pear. "My mother painted that." Rosa's expression shifted. "Yes." Sadie remembered the curl on the T without remembering the day it had been painted. Her mother drew the same curl in birthday cards, shopping lists, and the notes she left on Sadie's apartment door during the last months she was well enough to visit. Why was it covered? June put up the calendar. "That calendar is from 11 years ago. I didn't say she covered it recently." Sadie removed the rusted tack. The calendar fell apart in her hands, revealing the whole sign. Rosa picked up a broom. "We'll need traps. We need fruit first. We have fruit. We have fruit nobody else wants. That's traditional for a farm stand." They worked until the sorting line started. Sadie swept while Rosa wiped shelves with a bleach solution, strong enough to make their eyes water. Lenny appeared at the door, looked inside, and said, "You found our luxury retail division." "You're working at the tire shop," Sadie said. "Lunch break. The tire shop is 9 miles away. Long lunch." Rosa handed him a trash bag. "Then you have time." By noon, Cal had tested the electrical outlet, Janelle had carried out 3 ruined display baskets, and Thomas had repaired the sagging counter with a board that did not match anything. None of them admitted to volunteering. Each described the work as preventing Sadie from doing it badly. Hector did not participate. He stood outside studying the faded sign over the gate. "This takes people away from harvest," he said. "It takes me and Rosa 4 hours Saturday," Sadie replied. "Rosa is needed in the shed, not Saturday morning. If Mara increases her order, she is." "Mara already reduced her order because I promised fruit too early. You reduced it, after promising it." He glanced through the doorway at the shelves. "June closed this for a reason. Because Grandpa got sick. That was one reason." "What was the other?" Hector looked toward Rosa, who had gone still with a cleaning rag in her hand. "Not enough return for the work," he said. "People see cash in a box and think the box created it. Somebody has to sort, stock, sit here, count, clean, and carry what doesn't sell back to the shed." Sadie had calculated the same problem. She had also calculated the value of 3 bins of mixed-grade fruit currently generating nothing. "We open 4 hours," she said. "If it doesn't cover labor and a fair share of picking costs, we don't do it again." "Fair share according to who?" "All of us." Hector gave her a long look. Better answer. It was not agreement, but he picked up the broken cider sign and carried it to Cal. Camille arrived in a white SUV as they were finishing. She stepped out wearing clean boots and surveyed the roadside stand, as if Sadie had chosen to live in a condemned shed to win an argument. "You didn't answer my messages," she said. "I've been selling fruit. I asked what you want from Grandma's closet. Nothing. You haven't looked. I don't want her clothes. You're wearing her boots." Sadie looked down. "These have a job." Camille opened the rear hatch of her SUV. 2 plastic bins sat inside. "What's that?" "Things from the kitchen that aren't mine. You inherited the contents. I don't need 67 dish towels." "There are 67? Grandma apparently expected a national shortage." Camille lifted out the first bin. Sadie took the other end. Inside were canning jars, paper sacks, rubber bands, and an old green cash box. Rosa pointed. "That was from the stand." "It was in the pantry," Camille said. Sadie set the bin on the counter. "Does it have money in it?" "No, then it's definitely ours." Camille noticed the painted words on the wall. Her face changed so subtly Sadie might have missed it if she had not spent a lifetime measuring her sister's silences. "You uncovered that," Camille said. "Mom painted it." "I know. You remember?" "I helped." Sadie turned. "You did?" "I painted the pear. It's crooked. I was 15. The age slipped out as an old fact, not a living stake." Camille ran one finger over the yellow paint. Mom said it looked friendly, she added. Grandma said pears weren't supposed to lean. Of course she did. She made us repaint it twice. Mom leaned it again both times. Sadie smiled before grief pressed against the smile from underneath. Camille folded her arms. You're reopening the stand, Saturday morning? With what permit? Farm Direct sales are already covered, Rosa checked. With what staff? Me and Rosa. You work here all day and at that diner all night. Are you monitoring me? Patty called me. Why does Patty have your number? We were on the hospital auxiliary together. You were on a hospital auxiliary? I contain multitudes. Lenny, carrying a ruined basket past the door, called. That's my line. Camille waited until he was gone. You don't have to prove Grandma, right? About what? Leaving you this place. I'm trying to pay people. You tore up $12,000. Reed told you. Dad told me. Owen is your dad now? He has a phone, Sadie. Camille lowered her voice. Grandma would have taken that money. Grandma took money from everywhere and told everyone a different story. She kept the orchard going. She left it $9,000 behind on payroll. And you think a farm stand fixes that? No. 30 boxes here, 20 boxes there, and me pouring coffee until midnight might. Camille looked past her toward the orchard. You always did like making suffering look useful. The sentence struck too close to something Sadie had not named. And you like labeling it so you can put it in a box. Fine. Camille turned toward her SUV. Why didn't Grandma invite me back? Sadie asked. Camille stopped. After Mom died, Sadie continued. She helped with tuition. She called on holidays. But every time I said I might visit, she told me how busy harvest was, or how the guest room wasn't ready. The guest room was always ready. I know. Camille faced her. She thought you didn't want to come. She made sure I didn't. She said you sounded relieved when she told you not to. I was trying not to beg, and she was trying not to. They stood with the same answer between them, shaped by two women who had loved each other, and each waited for the other to admit it first. Camille reached into her SUV again and removed a bundle of red and white fabric. Tablecloths, she said, for Saturday. Sadie took them. Don't make it emotional, Camille added. The Blue Heron order went out Friday with 30 boxes that Bernice approved and Rosa packed. Mara cut apples from 3 random boxes before accepting the load. These are right, she said. I said they would be. You also said 50. Sadie took the check without defending herself. By Saturday morning, folding tables stood outside the roadside stand under the faded bellwether sign. Rosa covered them with Camille's tablecloths. They arranged Bartlett pears, Gravensteins, marked PI apples, tart, and mixed bags of fruit too small or uneven for premium boxes. Sadie wrote prices on a chalkboard. Rosa erased 2 of them and raised the amounts. People won't pay that, Sadie said. People who won't pay that can buy supermarket apples. We need sales. We need profitable sales. Their first customer arrived 7 minutes before opening, an older woman in gardening gloves who bought 12 pounds of pears and complained that the stand had been closed too long. The second was Patty, who purchased 1 apple, took a bite in front of Sadie, and said, "Pie might save it." Word moved in the ordinary way, through phone calls, diner conversations, and people driving past slowly enough to see the open doors. A retired electrician bought seconds for applesauce. 2 women from a bed and breakfast tasted the Cox apples and ordered a weekly box. The man whose wife had loved pear butter came for 3 pears and placed $1 on the counter. "What's this?" Sadie asked. "Interest. On the dollar Grandma shorted you? She kept it 11 years. Sadie gave him 6 apples. By noon, the shelves were half empty. The cash box held $714, far more than Sadie had projected, and far less than a miracle. Rosa counted it twice. "Labor, packaging, fruit cost," Sadie said. "I know how a cash box works." "Net? $491. Sadie looked at the empty spaces on the tables and felt the dangerous beginning of hope. Then Rosa pointed to the bruised fruit they had carried back inside. "We lost more than we should have. Your mixed bags were too heavy. We changed them next week." Rosa glanced at her. "You think there's a next week, do you?" Rosa closed the cash box. "If the numbers say so. The farm stand money, Blue Heron's check, the West Valley payment, and several smaller deliveries finally cleared the old payroll balance on Tuesday." Rosa erased the last 4 figures from the whiteboard while all 7 workers watched. Lenny applauded. Bernice told him to stop. Sadie expected relief to feel larger. Instead, Rosa turned the board over and wrote the amount due for the current pay period, $7,206. Below it, she added the fuel bill, the carton order, and the overdue electric charge for the irrigation pumps. "Congratulations," Rosa said. "You're only broke in the present tense." Hector came in carrying an envelope. "Reed dropped this off," he said. Sadie did not reach for it. "What is it?" "An offer to buy the orchard." Nobody moved until Lenny asked, "Is it a good offer?" Hector set the envelope on the break room table. "It has a number. That was not my question. It's the only part I read." Sadie looked at him. "You opened it?" It was not sealed. Rosa turned it over. The flap had never been glued. "That is unsettling stationery," she said. Sadie took the envelope into the office and shut the door. Through the thin wall, she could hear the crew discussing the electric bill and whether Cal could adjust the pump timers without starving the upper rows. Nobody mentioned the offer again. Reed's cover letter was brief. He proposed buying Bellwether's land, equipment, water allocation, and remaining crop. The permanent crew would receive offers from the new operation, though their duties and schedules might change. He had included a purchase price large enough to clear every orchard bill Sadie knew about, erase her student loans, replace her car, and leave her with more money than she had ever imagined possessing. It was also less than the land might bring if marketed widely, which Reed acknowledged in a paragraph about a quick sale, no broker's commission, and his willingness to assume the current harvest risk. The last page held a blank line for Sadie's signature. She sat on the short vinyl sofa. Selling had been her plan before the farmhands stayed. It had been the family's plan before she knew there was one. Nothing in the past 2 weeks had made selling less sensible. She had slept in an unheated office, bathed in a utility sink, worked until midnight for tips, and celebrated paying wages that should never have been late. She imagined calling the student loan company and hearing a zero balance. She imagined an apartment with a shower close enough to the bed that using it did not require shoes. She imagined sleeping through an entire night without water, fruit, or payroll demanding something from her. The relief was so vivid it frightened her. Someone knocked once and entered before she answered. Bernice held a paper sack of bruised pears. "Privacy," Sadie said. "Door's too thin for that." Bernice placed the sack on the desk. "Patty wants these for pie tests." "Is Patty buying them?" "Patty buys nothing she can make you carry over for free." Sadie covered Reed's offer with her hand. Bernice noticed and looked away, which was more respectful than pretending not to notice. "What would you do?" Sadie asked. "About Patty?" "The offer. Sell. Move somewhere warm. Become unbearable at holidays." Sadie stared at her. Bernice picked up the cinnamon air freshener and sniffed it. "You asked what I would do. I did not say what you should do. You'd really sell?" "I'm 56 years old. My knees predict rain more accurately than the weather service. Reed would put me behind a grading table and pay on Fridays. I thought you wanted to save the old trees. I want many things. Some of them fight." Bernice returned the air freshener to the filing cabinet. "Don't keep Bellwether because we stayed. That turns our choice into handcuffs. What if selling costs you your jobs? What if keeping it does?" Sadie glanced through the window at the crew. Janelle was erasing numbers from the whiteboard while Hector argued with Cal over pump hours. "You make loyalty sound almost useless," she said. "No, I make it expensive." Reed arrived that afternoon in a clean pickup that looked out of place beside Bellwether's dented truck. He wore work boots, though their leather had never met orchard mud. Sadie met him near the south slope with the unsigned papers folded under her arm. "You could have called," she said. "You don't answer. I answer buyers. Then pretend I'm one. You are one." The old variety trees spread behind her, their rows uneven and their branches heavy in places, sparse in others. Reed picked a Cox apple, turned it in his palm, and put it back without tasting it. "That's not ready," Sadie said. "I know," Bernice says, touching every apple delays ripening. Bernice says things to make people stop touching her trees. Sadie handed him the papers. "Why do you want it?" "Land, water, crew, location, trees, some, the south slope." He looked over the block. "It's inefficient. People are buying those apples. People buy jars at a church bazaar. That doesn't make it an industry. It was $700 in 4 hours. Before costs, $491 after direct costs." Reed smiled faintly. "You sound like June. I've never been more insulted. I didn't mean it as one." They walked between the trees. Fallen apples softened beneath the grass. A bee moved drunkenly around a split Gravenstein. Reed pointed toward a gap in the next block. I'd pull from here to the road. High-density galas, mechanical platforms, new drip. Triple the trees per acre. At what cost? A lot. Then why is it sensible for you and foolish for me? Because I have financing, contracts, and 5 other growers to spread the risk. You have a farm stand and a diner apron. The cruelty lay in his accuracy. Sadie stopped walking. Did you know Grandma was leaving it to me? No? When did you know? Same day you did. Would you have canceled the contract if you knew? Yes. He did not hesitate. Bellwether was costing the brokerage money, he continued. We sent trucks for half loads. We combined grades to keep June from losing buyers. We discounted commissions. Other growers noticed. You made it sound like she failed spec, and you cut her loose. She did fail spec, and you covered for her. For 3 years. Sadie absorbed that. It did not absolve him, but it removed the clean shape of her anger. Why didn't you tell me at the house? You were looking at me like I'd killed her. You offered her workers' jobs before telling me they weren't getting paid. I knew they weren't getting paid. I didn't know if you knew what a payroll register was. I have a logistics degree. You framed a logistics degree and put it in an orchard office with no heat. I couldn't afford the frame. Reed almost smiled. Sadie hated that she almost did too. He looked toward the packing shed. I'm not trying to steal this from you. Get another valuation. Ask for more. I'll negotiate. But you think I should sell. I think June spent years feeding an orchard with pieces of herself and called it devotion. Grandpa's health went. Mom stopped visiting. Your mother left. Dad built a career 40 miles away and still looked guilty every time it rained here. I don't think suffering is proof something matters. Camille said almost the same thing. She used longer words, didn't she? Several. Reed held out the papers. Offer stays open through harvest. After that, I start planning around other acreage. Sadie took them. What happens to the old blocks? We remove them. All of them? The ones that don't make sense. He headed toward his truck. Before climbing in, he called, "You should check Hector's shoulder." Sadie stiffened. "What about it?" He asked whether my health plan starts immediately. The truck pulled away. Hector was in the equipment bay, tightening a bolt on the sorting conveyor with his left hand. When Sadie entered, he shifted the wrench to his right and nearly dropped it. "How long?" she asked. "What?" "Your shoulder." He bent for the wrench. "Old injury? You're favoring it. I'm right-handed. You're lying badly. That is an owner's privilege." Sadie stood between him and the conveyor. "Are you leaving?" His face hardened. "Reed told you. He told me you asked about insurance. A question is not leaving. Neither is working 2 days at a vineyard, apparently, but I keep finding out the definitions after everyone else." Hector set the wrench down. "My wife's insurance ended when she changed jobs. Mine is through Bellwether, and Bellwether has missed 2 payments. Sadie felt the floor shift under her. "Why didn't I know? Rosa is fixing it. Rosa can't fix premiums without money. She got an extension. How injured are you?" "I am working. That wasn't my question." He looked past her. "Now you enjoy it." "No, I understand why you did." Hector rolled his shoulder and failed to hide the pain that crossed his face. "I tore something years ago," he said. "Maybe it's angry again. You need a doctor. I need health coverage. I'll make sure the premium is paid. With diner tips, if necessary. Do not make promises because you are frightened." Sadie thought of Mara's 50 boxes. "Fine. I'll find out what it costs and tell you what I can do. Better." The insurance extension took nearly all the farm stand profit. Current wages remained short. Sadie shifted the pump schedule again, delayed the carton order, and chose the cheaper of 2 replacement couplings for the West irrigation main. Cal held the coupling between 2 fingers. "This is thin," he said. "It's rated for the pressure. So is the last one. This is $48. The brass assembly is $210. The brass assembly does not become shrapnel. We need 4. We need 4 if you want to repair all the weak joints. We need 1 if you want to repair the joint that failed. And wait for the others? That is generally how failing things work." Sadie ordered the cheaper couplings. Cal wrote the date on the first one in black marker before installing it. "What's that for?" she asked. "So I know how long to resent you." The road stand opened again Saturday and earned less than half its first total. Rain kept drivers on the highway. 3 cases of pears softened before closing, and a customer returned a bag of Gravensteins because 1 apple held a worm. "Organic," Lenny told her. "Free protein." Sadie refunded the entire bag. At the diner that night, Patty placed a slice of pear pie beneath the warming lamp. Bellwether fruit, she said. Sadie tasted it standing beside the order window. The pears held their shape and carried a flavor deeper than sugar, almost floral. That's good. My pie was always good. The pears helped. June's last words were probably an argument too. Sadie took another bite. Patty wiped the counter. You selling? Sadie glanced at her. Town talks. Reed made an offer. Good one? Yes. You taking it? I don't know. Patty nodded as if uncertainty were an ordinary side dish. Table 6 needs ketchup. After closing, Sadie drove back to Bellwether with Reed's offer on the passenger seat. She parked near the south slope and walked beneath the old trees in the dark. Unlike the first night, she knew where the ground dipped and which row held the sweetest smell. She imagined the trees removed, the irrigation straightened, the land made efficient. Nothing Reed proposed was cruel to an orchard. Trees were planted to be cut down eventually. That did not explain why she placed one hand against a rough cock's trunk and began to cry. At 7 the next morning, she gathered the crew in the break room. Reed's offer lay on the table. I'm not signing this before harvest, she said. I'm also not promising I'll never sign it. Hector watched her carefully. I can commit to finishing what's in the trees, Sadie continued. I can commit to telling you before I decide. That's all. Bernice nodded. Rosa did not, but she did not look away. Lenny raised his hand. This isn't a classroom, Hector said. I have a question. Do we still get jobs with Reed if we spend harvest proving him wrong? You're welcome to ask him. I prefer questions with less risk. Sadie folded the offer and returned it to the envelope. Anyone who wants to take his offer now should. Nobody moved. Hector looked around the table. Then we work. The cheap coupling on the West Main lasted 9 days. It failed at noon beneath full pressure, splitting along its seam and sending a sheet of water through the lower pear block. By the time Janelle reached the valve, soil had washed away from the roots of 11 trees. Cal found Sadie standing ankle-deep in mud, holding one broken half. He did not say he had warned her. That was worse. Say it, Sadie told Cal. He took the broken coupling from her and examined the split. The black date on its side had stretched into a crooked smile. No point. That has never stopped anyone here. Cal handed it back. We need shovels. Water had carved a channel through the row and exposed roots like pale fingers. Janelle shut off the West Main, but the saturated ground continued to slump. Thomas and Lenny brought shovels. Bernice arrived with burlap and began directing them before Sadie understood the plan. They pushed soil back around the 11 trees, built shallow berms to redirect the remaining water, and covered exposed roots against the afternoon sun. Mud swallowed Sadie's boots and held them each time she tried to move. When one came off entirely, she continued in a sock until Rosa retrieved it. Hector lifted a wheelbarrow by its handles and went white around the mouth. Sadie caught the side before it tipped. Put it down. I have it. You very clearly don't. He tried to lift again. His right arm trembled. Thomas took the handles from him without comment. Hector released them only because refusing would have created a scene larger than surrender. Janelle knelt beside the worst tree, pressing mud around its roots with both hands. These pears were already stressed. Will they die? Sadie asked. Maybe. How long until we know? Spring. Sadie stared at her. We wait 6 months. Trees are inconsiderate about closure. Cal measured the old pipe. We need the brass assembly today. I'll call the supplier. They can't deliver until Thursday. Who has one? Cal rubbed his thumb over the broken plastic. Reed might. Nobody looked at Sadie, which was how she knew everybody was. She called him with mud drying between her fingers. I need a coupling, she said when he answered. What size? She read Cal's measurements. One of our growers has 2 in his pump house. I need one. I gathered that. I'll pay for it. You sound worried I'll ask for the deed. I'm learning to clarify terms. I can bring it in an hour. He arrived in 43 minutes wearing the same clean boots. This time, he stepped into the mud without trying to preserve them. Cal showed him the failed joint. Reed looked once at the broken coupling, then toward Sadie. You bought plastic. Yes. Why? It was cheaper. Was. He set the brass assembly on the tailgate. Cal and Janelle began fitting it, while Reed rolled up his sleeves and helped Thomas clear silt from the valve box. Sadie stood beside him. You don't have to work. Neither do you, technically. What do I owe? $210 for the part. That's exactly what Cal quoted. We use the same supplier. And delivery? I was coming by. To check on your future land? To check on my cousin. She almost missed the distinction because Reed spoke while scraping mud from the valve cover. You can enjoy this, Sadie said. The part where you prove my point? Yes. He shook his head. I watched Grandma buy the cheapest fixes for 10 years. Every time she said the orchard only needed to get through one more season. Then she paid twice. Did you tell her that? Regularly. Did she listen? Look at the pipe. Cal tightened the final bolt. The brass looked excessive beside the patched length surrounding it, solid and almost golden. We bring pressure up slowly, Janelle said. They opened the valve in stages. The pipe held. Water moved into the intended channels with a low, steady rush. Reed washed his hands from the tank on his truck. I'll add the coupling to the purchase settlement if you sell. And if I don't, then buy me lunch sometime. That is a terrible lending policy. Family has always been our weakest department. He drove away with mud on his boots and left the offer unmentioned. The crew gathered in the break room after the damaged roots were covered. Everyone's clothes had dried stiff. A smear of dirt crossed Rosa's forehead. Hector stood against the wall instead of sitting, his right arm held close to his side. Sadie placed the broken coupling on the table. I chose it after Cal told me not to. We were there, Bernice said. I'm saying it because I need the mistake to be mine. The mistake already has your name on it, Janelle replied. You approved the invoice. Sadie let that land. The repair, lost water, and extra pump time will cost somewhere around $600. More if those trees die. Rosa glanced at the whiteboard. Current payroll is still short. I know. We could have bought the brass 4 times for $600, Lenny said. Cal looked at him. Thank you, Professor. I enjoy teaching through pain. Sadie pulled the cardboard orchard map onto the table. I made the decision alone because I thought asking would slow it down. I also thought I understood the trade-off. You understood the price, Cal said. Not the part. Yes. Hector spoke from the wall. June used to hold meetings like this. Sadie turned toward him. After, he continued, after she cut a schedule, after she bought something, after she promised fruit. She showed us numbers when the numbers could no longer change. Rosa's face had gone still. Sadie remembered gathering everyone after she spent payroll money on a repair. She had congratulated herself for showing the accounts, never asking what good transparency did once the choice belonged to the past. What would asking have changed, she said. Cal would have said brass, Janelle answered. I knew that. I would have shown you the 11 trees that line feeds. I didn't know that. Thomas would have found a used assembly. Thomas shrugged. Maybe. And I, Rosa said, would have told you what $600 does to payroll before you gambled it. Sadie sat. Okay. Bernice narrowed her eyes. Okay, what? Okay, no more meetings after. What does that mean? It means the repair budget isn't mine alone. Janelle and Cal decide what the system needs. Rosa says what the money can handle. If those answers don't match, we discuss what gets delayed before we buy anything. You own Bellwether, Hector said. Yes, you cannot turn every decision into a committee. No, but I can stop treating questions like threats. Hector pushed away from the wall and nearly lost his balance. Sadie stood. We're going to urgent care. No. His fingers opened and closed at his side. Hector, it's the shoulder. Your hand is numb. Partly. How partly? He looked at the others for support. His sister pointed toward the door. Go, Rosa said. The urgent care waiting room smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. Hector sat beneath a television, showing a home renovation program with the sound off. Sadie filled in the insurance information while he objected to every question. Emergency contact? My wife. Name? You know Marta. I've never met Marta. She knows you. That is increasingly how this town works. He gave her the number. When the receptionist called him back, Hector stood and hesitated. You don't have to stay, he said. I drove. You can leave and come back. In what? He looked through the glass doors at the orchard truck. Good point. Sadie waited 90 minutes. She called Rosa about a pear delivery, confirmed Deb's order for the following week, and told Patty she might be late. Patty replied that Table 6 had survived catch-up without her before. Hector emerged wearing a sling and an expression of personal betrayal. What did they say? Inflamed tendon. Maybe a tear. Maybe. Imaging if it doesn't improve. And work. No lifting. No reaching overhead. No tractor if the medication makes me dizzy. For how long? 2 weeks. Sadie stared at him. Could be less. The pears don't care. That's what I told the doctor. What did she say? That I was not her most original patient. In the truck, Hector tried to remove the sling. Sadie reached over and pulled it back into place. I cannot work in this. You can't work without it. There is a difference between hurt and useless. I didn't say useless. You're thinking about who replaces me. She had been thinking about labor schedules, harvest windows, and whether Thomas knew enough of Hector's routes to direct picking. The practical questions were necessary. Hector heard abandonment in all of them before she spoke. You still know which blocks are lying to us, she said. Janelle knows the trees, not the buyers, not the equipment history, not which grower might have a brass coupling in a pump house. He looked out the passenger window. I need you walking blocks, setting harvest order, and checking the loads before they leave, Sadie continued. Thomas can direct the physical crew. Janelle handles irrigation. Cal handles equipment. So I watch. You decide. Without lifting, you make it sound like a promotion. It isn't. Same terrible pay. His mouth moved at one corner. At Bellwether, Sadie wrote the temporary responsibilities on the whiteboard before the next day's work began. Hector corrected 3 lines, crossed out the word supervisor, and replaced it with foreman. Nobody argued. The new arrangement exposed how many decisions Hector had carried without naming them. He knew which tractor could enter the soft lower rows without compacting soil. He knew Mara rejected boxes stacked beside onions because apples absorbed the smell. He knew Cal heard poorly in his left ear and placed him accordingly when equipment was moving. Forced out of physical work, he began explaining things he had previously done himself. Thomas resisted being directed at first. If you want that bin moved, you move it, he told Hector. I cannot. Then ask. Hector looked as if Sadie had arranged the injury solely to humiliate him. Please move the bin, he said. Thomas did. Bellwether's work became slower for 3 days, and then, in small ways, clearer. Janelle marked weak irrigation points on the orchard map. Cal listed repairs by consequence instead of price. Rosa added labor hours before Sadie quoted orders. Sadie began calling the system their plan, then stopped correcting herself when others did too. Direct sales grew by boxes, not miracles. Dev bought Cox and Ashmead apples for North Table. The bed and breakfast took mixed pears. Mara increased her order only after Bernice approved the picking date. The roadside stand earned enough to justify opening, though not enough to justify Sadie's first hope for it. At mile 9, Patty put Bellwether pear pie on the menu and paid wholesale for the fruit after Sadie threatened to remove her name from the chalkboard. You negotiate like June, Patty said. Everybody needs to stop saying that, then stop making her face. Sadie's diner wages bought groceries and kept her personal bills from touching the orchard account. Her tips accumulated in a coffee tin beneath the office desk. She counted them when she could not sleep and hated how long it took ordinary money to become enough. The forecast changed on a Thursday afternoon. Hector carried the printed page into the packing shed. A hard wind was expected Sunday, with gusts strong enough to drop ripe fruit. Bellwether's largest gala block needed at least 5 more days on the trees. Janelle cut an apple and studied the seeds. Too early, she said. Bernice tasted a slice. Not by much. Hector looked toward the rows, then at the reduced crew schedule. If we wait, he said, we could lose half of it. And if we pick now? Sadie asked. We guarantee fruit below grade. The wind had not arrived, but the shed roof gave a soft metallic creak above them. Sadie looked around the table. This time, she did not decide alone. Janelle drew 3 lines across the orchard map. The ridge takes the wind first, she said. These galas will drop hardest. Upper pears, too, Hector added. They're tall and thin. Bernice shook her head. Pears can hold. The galas are heavy. Some pears can hold. Not those. Cal looked at the forecast. If the gusts hit 60, the old shed roof becomes somebody else's roof. Rosa wrote roof beside the labor figures. How many hours to secure it? Depends whether Lenny helps. I can tie knots, Lenny said. You tie opinions to other opinions, Bernice told him. That is not the same thing. Sadie listened until everyone had argued past certainty. Then she put 4 headings on the whiteboard. Pick now, leave, secure, after. They chose the most exposed gala rows for early picking, accepting a lower grade rather than risking all of it on the ground. The sheltered rows would remain. Pears on the upper edge would come off, the lower blocks would stay. Cal and Lenny would secure the shed roof and cooler doors. Janelle would reduce irrigation before the storm, so saturated soil did not release roots. Rosa would keep the sorting line running until they knew what they actually had. How many bins? Sadie asked. Hector named 14. Bernice said 11. They settled on 12 staged near the ridge and 4 more empty ones beside the upper pairs. Labor? Rosa asked. Silence replaced the arguments. Cal had repair work promised elsewhere. Janelle was scheduled at the vineyard Friday afternoon and Saturday. Lenny's cousin needed him at the tire shop. Reed's growers were preparing too, and temporary harvest labor had become scarce across the valley. Sadie looked at each of them. You take the work you already committed to. Hector frowned. Then we cannot pick the plan we just made. We adjusted. Into what? I don't know yet. Janelle leaned against the table. Reed offered Sunday hours, time and a half if the wind comes in late. Sadie felt the offer like a hand testing a bruise. You should take it if you need it. Do not decide what I need. I'm not. You keep saying go like you're proving you won't hold us. I'm saying you have choices. So do you, Janelle replied. Ask us to work. Sadie looked around the room. These were adults with rent, mortgages, medical premiums, other employers, and promises Bellwether had already broken. Asking felt dangerously close to using what they had given her. We need you, she said. I can pay regular hours. I can't promise overtime clears on the next check. I won't pretend that's fair. Lenny rubbed the back of his neck. My cousin will complain. Your cousin complains when sunlight hits his shop, Cal said. He considers weather a personal attack. I can finish his tires tonight, Lenny said. I'll be here tomorrow. Cal nodded. I'll move the repair job. Janelle took out her phone and called the vineyard before she could change her mind. Bernice was already revising the picking order. Thomas had never accepted outside work. Rosa looked at Hector. You're not climbing. I know. You're not lifting. I heard the doctor. You argued with the doctor. The doctor was very rigid. Sadie watched them settle their schedules around Bellwether. The choice did not look noble. It looked inconvenient. Phone calls had to be made. Money was forfeited. People on the other end were disappointed. Every one of them stayed. Sadie turned toward the whiteboard before gratitude made her say something they would punish. I need to call Patty. At mile 9, Patty listened to the request while pouring gravy over a chicken fried steak. You're giving me 30 hours notice, she said. I know. You promised Friday and Saturday. I know. The apples called. They're unusually demanding. Patty carried the plate to the order window. Marlene can take Friday. I'll take Saturday until 9. I owe you. Correct. I can bring pears. You already owe me. Don't add pears like interest. Sadie untied her apron. Patty pointed the gravy spoon at her. Take 2 meatloaf dinners. Farm workers cannot survive on bruised apples, despite what orchard owners believe. The first picking bags went on before sunrise Friday. Headlamps moved along the ridge like low stars. The air was still and warm, offering no evidence that it intended violence. Hector directed from the end of each row, with his right arm strapped in the sling. He called out picking order, bin placement, and which trees to leave. Thomas handled the crew inside the rows. Janelle checked maturity as light rose. Sadie strapped on a bag. Hector looked at her. What are you doing? Picking. You have buyers to call. I called them. You have deliveries. Rosa rerouted Dev with Blue Heron. Then count cartons. Rosa counted cartons. Hector frowned, deprived of an objection. I'm not useless either, Sadie said. No. You pick slowly. Then everything I pick is a bonus. Your labor still has a cost. Apparently free labor is bad labor. That is what Rosa says. Rosa says many things. He almost smiled. Now you sound like me. By noon, Sadie's shoulders felt flayed beneath the picking straps. They filled 9 bins from the ridge, but the fruit told the truth Bernice had predicted. Too many apples clung to their stems. Too many tasted of water and starch instead of sweetness. Sadie held a pale seeded slice. Could Mara use these? No, Bernice said. Cider, maybe blended. Storage, they won't become what they weren't. Sadie looked at 9 bins preserved from the wind and diminished by being saved too early. Put them on the separate line, Rosa said. We sort for what they can do, not what she had hoped, what they could do. They harvested the upper pears that afternoon. Cal and Lenny climbed onto the packing shed roof to replace torn fasteners and stretch a new rope over the tarp. Sadie watched from below until Lenny waved. "You staring makes gravity nervous. So does your ladder. It's a good ladder." One leg rested on a board to compensate for the slope. Cal looked down. "It's a ladder." By evening, the crew had worked 11 hours. Rosa shut the sorting line while people were still bringing crates. "We stop," she said. "We have 2 hours of light," Hector replied. "We have tired hands and soft fruit. That makes expensive mistakes. The wind could move up, and exhaustion already arrived." Sadie expected Hector to overrule her. Instead, he looked at the crew and nodded. They ate Patty's meatloaf at the break room table with cartons as extra chairs. Camille arrived carrying 2 casseroles and a bag of paper plates. "What are you doing here?" Sadie asked. Patty called. "Patty is a menace. She said you were trying to feed 8 people with 2 dinners. 7 workers and me. I can count." Camille set down the casseroles. One held macaroni and cheese. The other contained green beans cooked with enough bacon to remove their vegetable status. Lenny lifted the foil. "I withdraw several private opinions about this family." "You're the tire shop cousin?" Camille asked. "I'm Lenny." Patty described everyone badly. Camille stayed to wash dishes. When Rosa tried to stop her, Camille said she owned 67 towels and needed a purpose. The wind forecast worsened overnight. By Saturday morning, gusts were expected before dawn Sunday and might reach 65 miles an hour. Bellwether continued picking the exposed rows. Sadie stopped accepting new orders despite 3 buyers asking for fruit. "We need the sale," Rosa said. "We don't know what we'll have." Rosa studied her, then changed possible beside 2 orders to waiting. The packing shed filled with bins. Good fruit went to premium boxes. Early picked galas went into cold storage under separate tags. Pears moved through the sorting line. The crew's work began to resemble a system. Hector called the order, Thomas moved people, Janelle checked maturity, Cal kept equipment running, Rosa tracked every box, and Bernice rejected every shortcut that bruised fruit. Sadie moved between them, solving the spaces in between. She adjusted delivery routes, postponed the road stand, called buyers, carried crates, and made sure nobody worked past the point Rosa had set. Reed called near dusk. "You still have people on the ridge?" he asked. "Just finishing. Get them off before dark. Forecast moved earlier. We saw. I have space in a cooler if yours fills. For a price. For electricity." Sadie looked at the stacked bins. "Thank you. You're welcome." Neither mentioned the offer. They left the orchard prepared as well as 8 tired adults could prepare it. Bins stood under cover. The cooler doors were braced. The west line was off. Cal parked the tractors away from trees that might lose limbs. Lenny tied the tarp with knots Bernice inspected and described as surprisingly adult. Sadie slept in the office fully dressed. The first gust woke her at 3:17. Something scraped across the roof. The window shuddered in its frame. Outside, the orchard moved in silver darkness, branches bending east beneath a forest too large to see. Headlights came through the gate. Hector arrived first, despite orders not to lift. Janelle followed, then Thomas, Cal, Rosa, Bernice, and Lenny. Nobody had been called. "You should be home," Sadie told them. "So should you," Janelle said. They checked doors, ropes, and equipment by flashlight. The wind took words from their mouths. At 4, one of the tarp ropes snapped and whipped against the roof. Cal started for the ladder. "No," Sadie shouted. "If we lose the tarp, we lose the tarp." Rain arrived sideways. They retreated into the packing shed, but the metal roof groaned so violently, Hector ordered everyone into the lower office. 8 adults crowded around the desk and short sofa, while the orchard struck the building with small sounds. Apples. Hundreds of them hit the roof, walls, and ground. Sadie stood at the window, seeing only fragments when lightning spread through the clouds. Trees thrashing, leaves flying, fruit bouncing across the yard. She reached for the door. Hector blocked it with his good arm. "There's nothing you can do in that. They're dropping." "Yes. We picked the ridge. We did." "What about the lower block?" "We wait." The waiting lasted 3 hours. When the wind weakened, Bellwether looked as if the ground had produced apples overnight. Red fruit covered the rows, collected in irrigation channels, and floated in muddy pockets. 2 upper pear trees leaned at angles they could not survive. The packing shed tarp hung from the roof like torn skin. Sadie walked into the nearest gala row, apples crushed beneath every step. Hector picked one up, turned it over, and showed her the impact bruise already darkening beneath the skin. "The brokerage won't take drops," he said. "We're not selling to the brokerage." A truck came through the gate. Reed parked beside the shed and stepped out. Behind his pickup, a flatbed carried stacks of empty harvest bins. He looked over the fallen fruit and opened the tailgate. "You need to move it before it heats," he said. For half a second, nobody moved. Then Hector said, "Clean drops left side, split fruit right, pears separate." The crew scattered. Reed backed the flatbed beside the first gala block. He had brought 20 empty bins, more than Bellwether owned and fewer than the orchard needed. Sadie climbed onto the trailer to release the straps. "What happened at your growers?" she asked. "North side got less wind. One lost a shade structure. And you came here?" "I saw the radar." "That doesn't answer it." Reed pulled the final strap free. "You need bins." They rolled the first stack onto the ground. The fallen fruit looked salvageable until Sadie began touching it. Some apples had landed in grass with only shallow bruises. Others had split against branches or struck the irrigation lines. Mud covered the fruit in low places. Wasps had already found one broken cluster. Rosa set up 4 sorting areas beside the shed. Fruit still on the trees or picked before the wind remained fresh market stock. Clean, unbroken windfalls went into blue-marked bins. Punctured fruit went into red-marked bins. Muddy or rotten fruit went onto a tarp for compost or livestock feed if anyone would take it. "No bakery fruit from the ground," she said. "What about cider?" Sadie asked. "Depends on the press." Sadie ran to the office and found Copperline Cider's card. June had written "Too Proud" of his barrels beneath the name. The owner, Sam Dwyer, answered sounding out of breath. "Everybody has drops," he said after Sadie explained. "I can buy tree-picked seconds. I have those too, but I need a place for clean windfalls. We don't usually take them. Usually isn't today. Ground contact means contamination. Your cider is pasteurized. That doesn't mean I press mud." Sadie watched Lenny lift a shining apple from clean grass and turn it under the light. "What if we sort in the field, wash nothing, and deliver only intact fruit from grassed rows? You inspect before unloading. Anything you reject stays on our truck." "How much?" She looked through the window at acres of red ground. "More than you want." Sam gave a tired laugh. "Bring 6 bins before 4. Maybe 8 if the fruit is cold. At what price?" He named a figure less than a third of fresh market value. "Half again higher," Sadie said. "I'm not rescuing you at premium. You're getting fruit you said you wanted once I had actual volume. I wanted seconds, not a weather event. Then 6 bins of tree-picked seconds at your usual price, and 6 clean windfall at the lower rate. You have 12 bins ready?" "I will." She did not. She had perhaps half a bin sorted. Sam hesitated. 5 o'clock. After that, the press schedule is full. Done. She hung up and wrote, "Copperline. 12 bins, 5 o'clock" on the whiteboard. Rosa came in carrying a bruised apple. "Did you ask how many we can sort?" "No." "Sadie. I asked what standard they'll take, and promised 12 before talking to us." Sadie heard her own mistake as Rosa said it. She took a breath. "Can we sort 12? With everyone, maybe. But somebody has to load, deliver, and keep premium fruit separate." Sadie erased the 12 and wrote, "Target 12. Minimum. 6 tree-picked. I'll call Sam back if we miss the count. You decide when." Rosa looked at the revised words. Better. Outside, Hector had arranged people by rows. Bernice inspected windfalls faster than Sadie could understand, her hands separating them by pressure and skin damage. Janelle marked the muddiest sections as lost. Cal moved bins with the smaller tractor. Tomas and Lenny picked fruit still hanging from damaged limbs before it could fall. Reed climbed into a picking bag. Hector pointed at his clean jacket. "You know how? I worked here until I was 22. Your technique has probably become expensive. It's like riding a bicycle. You bruised apples at 22 too." Reed followed Thomas into the row. By 10, the temperature had begun to rise. The sweet smell of split fruit thickened. Sadie carried buckets from the cleanest ground to the blue-marked bins until Hector intercepted her. "Phone," he said. "I have a bucket. You have buyers. I have 1 buyer. Then find a second." The old recipe box produced a feed store that no longer accepted fruit, a hog farmer who had retired, and a number answered by someone insisting he had never owned sheep. On the 4th call, a cattle rancher named Dwight Mercer, No relation, he emphasized twice. Agreed to take 4 bins of damaged apples at a price barely higher than hauling them to compost. You deliver, he said. Today? Before they ferment. Can you take pears? Cows aren't critics. She added his 4 bins to the board. North Table could absorb 2 extra boxes of tree-picked Cox apples. The bed and breakfast took pears. Mara refused windfalls, but agreed to buy additional early-picked galas for cooked filling if Bernice approved them. Not all of them, Mara warned. I'm a bakery, not a witness protection program for bad apples. Sadie laughed for the first time that day. At 11, Camille arrived with Owen. Camille carried sandwiches. Owen carried a chainsaw. Sadie stared at him. Who called you? Reed. I didn't ask for help. Owen set down a gas can, I noticed. 2 pear trees had leaned far enough that their roots lifted through the wet soil. A third had lost a heavy scaffold branch that blocked the row. Owen walked around it, checking where the wood had split. You know what you're doing? Sadie asked. I grew up here. That was a long time ago. So was the invention of a chainsaw. He looked toward Hector. You agree this limb comes off? Hector nodded. Clean cut below the split. Leave the trunk until we see if it settles. Owen put on ear protection. Sadie stepped back. She had never pictured him as someone who knew where to stand when a loaded branch released. In family rooms, Owen occupied soft chairs and poured drinks. Here, he read the tension in the wood, cut from the safe side, and moved before the limb struck the ground. Camille joined Rosa at the sorting tables. Premium, clean drop, punctured waste, Rosa told her. Camille picked up an apple. Waste, Rosa said. I haven't done anything. You held it like a tennis ball. By noon, Camille's white shirt was stained, and Owen's canvas jacket was covered in sawdust. The family did not discuss the estate, the purchase offer, or the torn check. They worked around each other with the uneasy competence of people whose bodies remembered an old language their mouths no longer spoke. Hector tried to lift a damaged limb with his left arm. Sadie stepped on it. He looked down at her boot. Move. You're in a sling. I am using the other arm. Your shoulders share a person. I need to see whether the trunk split. Thomas will lift. You look. Hector's jaw tightened. Foreman, Sadie reminded him. He called Thomas over. At 2:30, the count stood at 5 bins of tree-picked seconds and 4 clean windfall. Copperline would take more if they made the standard, but the sorting line had become a bottleneck. Rosa refused to speed it up. If we bruise clean fruit while sorting it, she said, we are manufacturing waste. Sadie moved Camille and Lenny to hand sorting at a second table. Reed loaded the first 6 bins onto the flatbed. He would deliver them because his truck could pull the load faster than Bellwether's. You trust me with your fruit? He asked. No. Good. Sam inspects before unloading. Call me with the count and price. I know how delivery works. This is my delivery. Reed looked at her, then nodded. I'll call. They sent the remaining cider bins in Bellwether's truck at 4:20. Sadie drove. Thomas rode beside her, with one hand braced against the dashboard whenever the truck shook. You can stop doing that, she said. I can. The truck cannot. Copperline occupied a long metal building, surrounded by stacks of wooden barrels. Sam Dwyer was a heavy-set man in rubber boots with apple pulp on both forearms. He cut random fruit from each bin. He rejected one windfall load for too many punctures. Sadie made him inspect it again with her. That one is intact, she said. That one isn't. Most are. Most does not go through a press separately. She wanted to argue the whole bin into a different condition. Instead, she took the rejection. Sam accepted the others and wrote the weights on a carbon form. You sorted better than most of what came in today, he said, then raised the price. He laughed. June's granddaughter. Everybody says that when they owe me money. He added 3 cents per pound to the tree-picked seconds. It was not enough to change Bellwether's future. It was enough to pay for 2 more days of labor. The rejected bin went to Dwight's cattle, along with the punctured fruit. By dusk, Bellwether had moved 16 bins away from rot. Another 5 remained compost. 9 bins of good fruit sat in cold storage. Thousands of apples still covered rows they had not reached. The crew continued under portable lights until Rosa stopped the belt. No, Hector said, we have another hour. We had another hour 3 hours ago. The fruit heats overnight. And Lenny nearly put his glove into the grater. Lenny raised both hands. Glove remains attached. Everyone stops, Sadie said. Hector looked at her. We lose fruit. We lose people if we keep going. Nobody argued after that. They ate Camille sandwiches in the packing shed. Owen sat on an overturned crate across from Sadie. Dirt had worked into the lines of his hands. You should accept Reed's offer, he said quietly. Sadie chewed and swallowed. You waited until after the free labor to mention it? I wanted you to see what one storm does. I saw. You think today proved the orchard works. No, today proved people worked. That's what your grandmother always said. Sadie set down her sandwich. Did you hate this place? Owen looked toward the open shed door. Darkness hid the fallen fruit, but not its smell. I hated that it always needed her more than we did, he said. Then she got old, and I realized she needed it too. Why didn't you take it? She didn't offer. Would you have? He considered longer than she expected. When I was your age, yes. Later, no. Now? He rubbed sawdust from his wrist. I don't know. It was the first answer he had given her that did not come arranged in advance. The storm loss took 2 days to calculate. Nearly a quarter of the gala crop had fallen. The 2 leaning pear trees could not be saved. The packing shed roof required repairs before winter. Salvage sales recovered only a fraction of the expected fresh market revenue. Sadie called every buyer before reducing a delivery. Mara accepted fewer boxes. Dev changed a menu rather than replace Bellwether's Cox apples with another variety. West Valley took the quantities Sadie could honestly promise. Nobody celebrated. Nobody disappeared. Payroll came due Friday. The orchard account was short by $1,800. Sadie counted the coffee tin beneath her desk. Her diner wages and tips totaled $614. Using all of it still left too much. She looked through the window at her hatchback, which Cal had revived with a used battery after its last failure. The paint was peeling from the hood. The transmission slipped between second and third. It was the only thing she owned that might become money quickly. Lenny's cousin offered $2,000 for it, mostly for parts and the engine. Sadie negotiated him to $2,200 and refused the ride back because accepting it felt like adding another debt. She walked 3 miles before Cal found her beside the highway. He stopped the orchard truck. Get in. I'm fine. You sold a car, not your judgment. She climbed in. Rosa was printing checks when they returned. Sadie deposited the sale money, added her diner cash, and covered payroll with $36 left in the operating account. Hector watched her place the hatchback's title receipt in the desk drawer. You cannot sell something every Friday, he said. I know. What's left? Sadie looked around the office, the short sofa, the useless silver key, Reed's unsigned offer, and the framed degree she still had not picked up. Not much. Outside, Reed stood beside his truck. The purchase offer expired in 2 days. Reed did not come inside. Sadie walked out with the offer under her arm. The afternoon had turned cold after the storm, and bruised apples sweetened the air around the shed. I heard you sold the car, he said. Town talks. Lenny talks. That too. Reed looked toward the office window, where Rosa was stacking printed checks. The price stands, he said. I'm not reducing it because of the storm. You could. I could also get struck by lightning. Neither would be smart. Sadie held the envelope tighter. Why are you here? To make sure you understand that selling now isn't surrender. It feels well-timed. I made the offer before the wind, and brought bins after. Both things can be true. He had begun using the phrase against her. Reed put his hands into his jacket pockets. I can close quickly. The crew keeps working through the transition. You can be done with the bills before winter. What happens after transition? Replanting starts. All at once, over 3 years, the South Slope first. He did not answer, which was an answer. They're buying those apples, Sadie said. Some of them. Dev wants the Cox and Ashmead. Mara wants Gravenstein's. The bed and breakfast takes mixed pairs. The stand moves what doesn't fit standard boxes. And how many acres does that support? Not 112. Exactly. Maybe the orchard doesn't need one answer for every acre. Reed looked at her with an expression she had seen at the farmhouse when she first asked about the canceled contract. Not contempt. Impatience sharpened by fear. You have $36 in the operating account, he said. Your car became payroll. A storm became cattle feed. You are making the suffering more efficient, Sadie. That is not the same as building a business. The words entered cleanly because some part of her already believed them. What if I don't sign by Sunday? I move on. To other acreage. Yes. And the job offers? I'll honor them if anyone wants one. Even if you don't get bellwether, I offered, because they're good workers, not because they came with the trees. Sadie looked through the open shed doors. Hector was checking a pallet tag while Thomas moved boxes. Rosa had replaced the whiteboard payroll total with 3 new headings: taxes, roof, winter. I need the 2 days, Sadie said. Reed nodded. Take them. Are you hoping I fail before Sunday? No. He opened his truck door. I'm hoping you stop thinking failure is the only honest reason to sell. Sadie took the orchard map off the wall and spread it across the break room table. She added the storm losses, current orders, fruit still hanging, unpaid bills, and every cost she could identify. Rosa sat opposite her with the account ledgers. Janelle brought irrigation estimates. Cal listed repairs in 3 columns: now, winter, and can fail quietly. Bernice changed the 3rd heading to probably can fail quietly. Hector supplied yield figures from the past 10 years without consulting a record. Sadie wrote them down, then asked Rosa to verify. Hector objected until Rosa found 2 years he had reversed. I remembered the weather, not the numbers, he said. That is why we check, Sadie replied. He grumbled, but he stopped objecting. They worked through the afternoon and into the evening. The orchard could not survive on Blue Heron, North Table, 2 grocers, 1 bed and breakfast, and a 4-hour farm stand. It also did not have to. Rosa identified former direct buyers willing to discuss next season if bellwether could guarantee delivery windows. Sadie grouped them by route and fruit grade. 1 weekly trip could serve 3 restaurants, the bakery, and West Valley produce without adding another driver. Copperline would contract for a limited amount of tree-picked seconds, though Sam refused to promise a price for windfalls because, as he said, he did not contract for gravity. The old varieties yielded less per acre, but their harvest windows spread labor across 6 weeks instead of concentrating it into 2. The same irregularity Reed disliked made them manageable for a small crew. Bernice marked the trees producing quality fruit. Janelle marked those consuming water without returning enough crop. Sentiment did not save every block. 11 acres needed removal. Another 6 could be reduced gradually. Sadie stared at the red marks. That's hundreds of trees. That's hundreds of trees already dying, Janelle said. June kept them. June also kept 67 towels. Sadie looked at Camille's red and white tablecloth folded on a shelf. What replaces them? Not all at once, Bernice said. 1 section. Varieties we can sell. Rootstock suited to the water we actually have. New trees don't produce immediately. No. So we lose that acreage for years. We're losing it now? There was no hidden solution waiting in bellwether soil. Every improvement required money before it returned money. Every cut hurt before it helped. The best projection showed a narrow path through the next season. If direct sales held, the road stand remained profitable, waste decreased, and no major equipment failed. Cal tapped, probably can fail quietly. Do not look at me. The worst projection ended with Reed buying the orchard later for less. What about wages? Sadie asked. Rosa turned the page. Bellwether could guarantee the permanent crew minimum weekly hours through pruning, then return them to full schedules before bloom. It could not match Reed's rates. It could not offer overtime without cash already assigned. Hector's insurance could remain current if they removed 2 unused vehicles from the policy and adjusted his duties until his shoulder healed. Your pay? Rosa asked. Sadie looked at the line she had left blank. I have the diner. That is not pay from the orchard. No, it should be on the plan. There isn't room. Then the plan depends on you working for free. Temporarily. Hector folded his arms carefully around the sling. June said temporarily for 15 years. Sadie put down her pencil. I don't know how to make bellwether pay me next season without cutting somebody else. Then write that, Rosa said. Sadie did. Owner pay deferred. Review monthly. No owner withdrawal before current wages, taxes, insurance. It looked responsible and foolish in equal measure. At 10, Bernice left to sleep. Cal followed. Lenny had gone directly from the storm cleanup to the tire shop and returned at 6, still wearing a shirt with his cousin's business printed on it. He fell asleep at the table with one hand around a cold cup of coffee. Thomas took a photograph. Delete that, Lenny said without opening his eyes. Too late. Janelle stayed until they finished the irrigation plan. Hector refused to go until Rosa closed the ledger. When only Sadie, Rosa, and Hector remained, The table was covered with a year that had not happened and might not. Is it real? Sadie asked. Rosa studied the projections. It's possible. That wasn't my question. Real costs money. Hector looked at the orchard map. You remove the bad blocks, you lose protection from wind on the lower rows. Janelle had noted that. New windbreak plantings appeared in the winter costs. We accounted for it, Sadie said. You ask buyers before planting. We accounted for that too. You don't promise fruit before Bernice approves the date. It's on the sales rules. You buy brass. Cal had written brass in capital letters across the irrigation budget. Sadie waited. Hector's gaze moved over the plan. Then, it is more real than what we had. Not approval, not faith. Enough to let her breathe. She found Camille sitting on the farmhouse kitchen floor the next morning, surrounded by stacks of plates. I'm keeping 8, Camille said. Apparently civilization can continue without 32 salad plates. Sadie set the orchard plan on the table. Is that the offer? No. Camille read while Sadie made coffee in June's machine. The ceramic rooster still guarded the windowsill. A green dot marked the place where one of its eyes had chipped away. You're removing trees, Camille said. Some. Grandma would hate that. Grandma isn't paying the water bill. Camille turned another page. You don't pay yourself. I have the diner. That isn't an answer. Rosa said the same thing. I like Rosa. You met her twice. I'm efficient. Sadie leaned against the counter. Reed says I'm making suffering efficient. He practices speeches before delivering them. Is he wrong? Camille closed the plan. You want me to tell you to keep it. I want you to tell me what you think. I think you were furious when Grandma left you Bellwether because it felt like proof she valued you least. Now you're afraid selling will prove she was right to. Sadie stared into her coffee. Camille continued more gently. Neither is about the orchard. What is? The people. The trees that work. The ones that don't. Whether buyers come back. Whether you can live like this without becoming someone everybody has to rescue. I don't want to be rescued. I know. That can become its own emergency. Camille rose, took June's chipped rooster from the windowsill, and handed it to Sadie. What am I supposed to do with this? You always wanted it. It's hideous. You cried when Grandma wouldn't let you take it to college. I did not cry. You made a spreadsheet proving it had no market value. Sadie held the rooster. That sounds fabricated. Take it. Leave the house. Decide about the orchard for reasons that are alive. At mile 9 that night, Patty found Sadie calculating winter cash flow on the back of a paper placemat. Table 2 wants pie, Patty said. They already had pie. They want more. It happens when pie is good. Sadie carried the slices over. One of the customers was Dev from North Table, eating late after closing her own kitchen. Sit for a second, Dev said. I'm working. I want to talk apples. Sadie sat. Dev wanted a standing weekly order next season. Not enormous, but larger than this year's. She would commit only if Bellwether could supply the old varieties at dependable times. I can't guarantee the exact week this far out, Sadie said. Then guarantee communication. If harvest moves, you call before my menu prints. I can do that. Can you? The question carried June's missed deliveries inside it. Yes, Sadie said. If I can't fill an order, you'll hear it from me first. Dev held out her hand. Sadie shook it. No deposit changed hands. No contract rescued the orchard. It was one buyer choosing to risk another season on her word. At closing, Patty put Sadie's paycheck beside the register. You staying at the orchard? She asked. I haven't decided. You've spent 2 hours making next year's route map. That's evidence, not a verdict. June would have called it a verdict. I'm not June. Patty tucked the check into Sadie's apron pocket. That might be the verdict. Sunday morning, Reed's offer lay on the break room table beside Sadie's operating plan and 7 draft employment agreements Rosa had helped her prepare. The contracts guaranteed only what Bellwether could plausibly pay. Every uncertainty was written plainly. Sadie set the ceramic rooster on the filing cabinet beneath the useless cinnamon air freshener. At 7, the permanent crew came in and filled every chair. Reed's offer would expire at noon. Sadie closed the break room door. Sadie placed one hand on Reed's envelope. This buys the land, equipment, water rights, and remaining crop, she said. It pays every bill we know about. Reed will offer all of you jobs. Lenny glanced at Hector. We know? Sadie looked around the table. He already talked to you? Months ago, Janelle said. Again yesterday, Cal added. The knowledge stung, though it should not have surprised her. Reed had not waited to see whether Bellwether survived before protecting his own plans. What did you tell him? Bernice tapped the employment agreement in front of her. You first. Sadie moved Reed's offer aside and opened the operating plan. This is what Bellwether can do without pretending. Minimum winter hours are guaranteed. Full schedules return before bloom if our orders hold. Insurance stays current. Overtime gets approved only when the money is already assigned. No delayed payroll hidden until Friday. Rosa nodded toward the last page. Show them the owner line. Sadie did. Owner pay deferred, Hector read. Again. Reviewed monthly. That is not pay, it's what the orchard can afford. It means your diner job supports Bellwether. My diner job supports me. Where do you live? Rosa asked. Sadie pointed vaguely toward the office wall. That room is not pay either. I have a sofa. You have 5 feet of a sofa, Lenny said. It builds character. You are too short to need more character. Sadie looked at the 7 agreements. If I put an owner draw into the plan now, I cut winter hours. Bernice turned her copy over, then put in a condition. 3 profitable months, you take something? What? Enough to stop eating rejected apples for breakfast. I buy groceries, with diner tips. That's what tips are for. Hector leaned forward. A plan that requires the owner to suffer quietly is June's plan with better handwriting. The sentence silenced her. Sadie took the pencil. Beneath the monthly review, she wrote, Owner draw begins after 3 consecutive months of current wages, taxes, insurance, and operating bills. How much? Rosa asked. Sadie named a modest figure. More, Bernice said. Sadie raised it slightly. Still insulting, Lenny said. It's more than I lived on in college. That explains several things, Rosa replied. They settled on an amount small enough to preserve winter hours and large enough to acknowledge that Sadie's work could not remain invisible simply because she owned the place. Janelle lifted her agreement. Who decides irrigation spending? The irrigation plan says you and Cal identify the need. Rosa verifies the cash. I approve it after we discuss what moves. And if there's an emergency, you act to prevent damage, then tell us. Not after asking permission while a block floods. Cal tapped his copy. Materials, no plastic pressure couplings. He took out a pen. Thomas read the duties listed under his name. Crew lead when Hector is restricted. Only while the doctor restricts him, Sadie said. Hector frowned. The doctor does not work here. The doctor remains surprisingly influential. What happens when my shoulder heals? You remain foreman. Thomas keeps the duties he's learned instead of pretending he forgot them. Thomas nodded once. Rosa had written the roles that way deliberately. Bellwether could no longer afford to store essential knowledge inside one person's habits. Lenny raised his hand. Hector sighed. What? Paid holidays. Sadie checked the plan. 3, 4. 3? 1 is my birthday. Your birthday is not a federal holiday. It is locally significant. 3. Can I choose one? No. He signed anyway. Cal signed after adding that equipment purchases would be evaluated by total repair cost rather than lowest price. Janelle signed when Sadie initialed the irrigation authority clause. Thomas read every line twice, asked no questions, and wrote his name in careful block letters. Rosa did not sign immediately. What? Sadie asked. You still control the bank account alone. It's my account. It's Bellwether's. Sadie felt the old reflex rise. The fear that sharing control meant admitting she was not capable of ownership. What do you want? She asked. Read access. I see every transaction, not just the statements you bring me. You already handle payroll. I handle what you give me. Hector watched his sister, expression unreadable. Sadie took the pen. Read access. Any payment over $5,000 gets discussed before it moves, unless it's already in the approved plan. Rosa signed. Bernice was next. She pointed to the orchard map. The red blocks come out, 11 acres. And we choose replacements after buyer commitments and water review. Yes, no memorial rose because somebody feels guilty. Sadie thought of June. Agreed. Bernice signed with a flourish too large for the line. Hector remained. His agreement described a foreman's work without pretending a foreman was valuable only when he could lift more than everyone else. Block planning, harvest order, safety, training, buyer quality checks, equipment history. Physical restrictions would follow medical advice. "You wrote this," he said to Rosa. Sadie wrote it. Rosa corrected it, Sadie admitted. Hector read the wage guarantee, the insurance clause, and the section requiring him to train Thomas and Janelle on decisions he once kept to himself. "You think I hide things," he said. "I think you carry them until nobody else knows they exist. That is different. It still leaves us without them." He looked toward the orchard through the break room window. Windfall apples remained beneath the trees despite 2 days of salvage. The ground showed raw circles where the pear trees had been removed. "Reed pays more," Hector said. "I know. His equipment works, most of it. He has a proper break room. That seems showy." Hector's mouth moved at the corner. He picked up the pen. "I stayed the first day because June would have haunted me if I left her granddaughter alone." Sadie waited. "I stay now because you finally ask before you answer." He signed. 7 names lay across 7 agreements. Sadie's throat tightened. "Thank you?" Bernice groaned. "I know. Don't make it emotional. You already did." At 11:40, Sadie called Reed. He answered immediately. "You signing?" "No." Silence held for several seconds. "Is that fear talking?" he asked. "Mostly. At least you know. I have a 1-year operating plan, direct commitments, block removal schedule, winter labor budget, and 7 signed employment agreements. You have $36. Payroll cleared. It's 48 now. That changes everything." "I sold Patty 2 boxes of pears." Reed laughed once, then became serious. "Afternoon, the offer's gone. I understand. I won't be able to protect that price if you come back in February. I know. And if you need to sell, call me before you miss wages. I will." Sadie looked at the crew through the office window. They had returned to work. The orchard did not pause because she had made a decision about it. "Reed?" "Yes?" "Thank you for the bins." "You're welcome." "And the coupling." "Buy lunch sometime. I have $48. Then wait." He ended the call without congratulating her or predicting disaster. It was one of the kindest things he had done. The sheltered galas remained on the trees 4 more days. When Bernice finally approved picking, their seeds were brown and their flesh snapped clean beneath her knife. The apples carried the sweetness the early picked fruit never developed. Bellwether did not have enough to replace what the wind had taken. It had enough to fill the orders Sadie had refused to overpromise. Blue Heron received every box on time. Mara cut 3 random apples, found nothing to criticize, and paid without reminding Sadie of June. Dev built 2 north table dishes around Bellwether's old varieties. West Valley bought the best pears. Copperline took the last tree pick seconds. The road stand opened through the final weekends of harvest and sold mixed bags, imperfect pears, and the story of no miracle at all. People came back because the doors were open and the fruit tasted good. Some complained about prices. One accused Rosa of changing the weight of a pound since June's time. Rosa invited him to bring his own scale. Current wages stayed current. The final harvest revenue paid the property taxes with 1 day to spare. There was enough for the immediate roof repair, though not the full replacement Cal recommended. He patched only what could safely be patched and wrote next year across the remaining estimate. The equipment account remained thin. Sadie's student loans remained exactly where they had been. She continued working 4 nights a week at Mile 9, where Patty placed Bellwether apples beside the register with a handwritten sign that read, "Local, stubborn, good for pie." Sadie objected only to the comma placement. Cold weather stripped the orchard of color. The leaves fell, exposing dead limbs and old pruning mistakes. With harvest finished, Bellwether became quieter, but not idle. Bernice began removing the worst trees from the 11 red acres. She marked each trunk before anyone cut. Some had produced fruit longer than Sadie had been alive. Others had not produced enough in years, their roots taking water that healthier blocks needed. Sadie expected cutting them to feel like betrayal. Instead, it felt like grief with a job attached. Owen came on the 3rd Saturday with his chainsaw. He asked Bernice where to start and accepted her answer without mentioning that he had once worked those rows. Sadie helped drag branches to the chipper. "Did June ever tell you why she left Bellwether to me?" she asked. Owen shut off the saw. "No." "You never asked?" "Of course I asked. She said you would understand." Sadie laughed bitterly. "That sounds like her. I thought she meant you understood the trees." "I didn't. Maybe she meant you understood being left." The answer hurt enough that Sadie had to look away. Owen removed his gloves. Your mother wanted this place once. Mom made her feel like every new idea insulted the old one. By the time Mom regretted it, apologizing would have required admitting she'd been wrong for years. So, she gave me the orchard instead. Maybe. Or maybe she was asking you to come home in the only language she spoke badly. Sadie looked at the empty spaces where trees had stood. That doesn't make it fair. No. It doesn't make what she did loving. No, Owen said. But she loved you. He restarted the saw. The next tree came down where Bernice had marked it. Hector's shoulder improved slowly. He attended physical therapy, complained about every exercise, and followed the restrictions only because Rosa threatened to inform the therapist personally. Thomas continued directing physical work. Janelle took full responsibility for the irrigation map. Hector discovered that teaching people how he made decisions did not erase his authority. It made Bellwether less fragile. Camille brought June's remaining orchard towels to the packing shed and claimed this was disposal, not generosity. She helped Sadie repaint the roadside stand, but refused to straighten the yellow pear their mother had painted. It leans, Sadie said. It has survived worse. In January, Cal submitted a materials request for plumbing. Sadie approved it because the amount fit the winter maintenance budget. 2 weeks later, she returned from the diner to find a frame shower stall built into the corner behind the office bathroom. Hot water ran from a proper shower head. Who did this? She asked the next morning. Every farmhand looked at someone else. The invoice says cooler drainage, Sadie said. The shower drains, Cal replied. Whose idea? Hector studied the orchard map. Rosa checked payroll figures. Bernice sharpened shears with theatrical concentration. Lenny raised his hand. No, everyone said together. Sadie used the shower that night until the hot water ran out. Winter orders became spring commitments in small, useful numbers. Mara reserved Gravensteins. Dev expanded her weekly order. West Valley agreed to mix sizes on specific pairs. The road stand's 4-hour schedule remained because Rosa's calculations said it earned its labor and no more. Bellwether did not hire a consultant to tell it what to plant. Bernice brought flavor. Janelle brought water needs. Rosa brought buyer demand. Cal brought equipment limits. Hector brought the history of which blocks had endured heat, frost, and wind. Sadie put those answers into one plan without pretending the plan belonged only to her. They chose 3 varieties for the first replacement section. 1 dependable pear, 1 apple Mara could use, and a small row of Cox apples for direct customers willing to pay for them. The order was modest enough to afford, and large enough to begin. The young trees arrived in March with their roots wrapped in damp material. They looked absurdly thin, laid beside the broad stumps of what had been removed. Camille and Owen came to watch the planting. Reed arrived late carrying lunch for the crew. He inspected the brass coupling on his way in and said nothing about the purchase offer. Sadie stood at the edge of the cleared block with 7 rows marked by string. I want each of you to choose one, she told the farmhands. For what? Lenny asked. You're responsible for teaching someone else how to tend it, not doing everything yourself. Teaching. Hector glanced at her. That includes you, she said. He chose the row nearest the old pear block. Rosa took the one beside it. Bernice selected the Cox apples and warned everyone that ownership of a row did not confer permission to prune without her. Janelle chose the driest ground. Cal took the row closest to the irrigation valve. Thomas and Lenny argued over the remaining 2 until Lenny lost, by choosing first and then disliking his choice. Sadie took the last row. They planted through the afternoon. The work was slower than removing trees and quieter. Each sapling had to be set at the right depth. Its roots spread rather than forced, the soil pressed firmly without being packed hard. At the roadside stand, the painted yellow pear still leaned against the tee. Behind it, Bellwether's old trees waited for bloom. In front of Sadie, 7 new rows held in the dark spring soil, one beside another, none standing alone.